Chapter 1156. Most of the external soul bones produced by the dragon race were dragon claws and wings. Originally, Lu Yuan had planned to gather both feet as well. After all, with palms, the soles of his feet could not be placed down. Furthermore, if he did that, his entire body would be filled with soul bones. However, reality proved that he had thought too much. There were indeed some external soul bones, but none of them were feet. Lu Yuan chose a wind dragon wing and absorbed it. The wind dragon was a very special dragon race. The probability of them dropping external soul bones was much higher than other dragon races. Once they dropped external soul bones, they were basically dragon wings. Among the external soul bones that Lu Yuan obtained, there were 3 pairs of dragon wings. They were all produced by the wind dragon. He was planning to give them to Hulina, Zhu Zhuqing, and Ning Rongrong. After absorbing the wind dragon wing, he had 3 pairs of dragon wings on his back. They were water, fire, and wind respectively. The 3 pairs of dragon wings, crimson red, ice blue, and light green, flapped behind Lu Yuan and emitted an indescribable aura. Although the golden dragon also had dragon wings, they were produced by the martial soul and not external soul bones. When he was condensing his divine equipment, he only had 2 pairs of dragon wings on his back. 4 pairs of dragon wings weren't very nice, but 6 pairs were much nicer. With 3 pairs of dragon wings on his back, Lu Yuan only felt that his body was as light as a feather. With the wind dragon wing, Lu Yuan only felt that his speed was much faster. The wind attribute was the best at speed. Apart from the spatial attribute, the wind attribute was the fastest. The wind dragon wing gave Lu Yuan a significant increase in speed. This external soul bone is worth absorbing. Feeling the power of the wind element coming from the dragon wings on his back, Lu Yuan sighed softly. His double pupils flickered with radiance. Next, I can absorb these soul bones to evolve my skull. 2 silver skulls appeared in his hand. Lu Yuan muttered to himself with some fluctuations in his eyes. More than 10 skulls were enough to upgrade his Tao Tai's skull to an extremely terrifying level. Buzz! Just as Lu Yuan sank into his thoughts, a rumble rang out. The 9-colored light nearby immediately dispersed, and the presence of a God King appeared, causing him to squint slightly. Na-Er's aura has become a lot stronger. It seems like she has benefited a lot, Lu Yuan said softly as a warm smile appeared on his face. The more benefits Gu Yina received, the happier he was. After all, they were husband and wife, and there was no distinction between them. Silver light flashed, and the strong aura quickly attacked, pressing in Lu Yuan's direction. Lu Yuan curled his lips. With a wave of his right hand, the god-slaying spear appeared. A terrifying and pure, murderous aura completely destroyed that aura. Endless ferocious auras spread out and pressed forward. Obu Chi quickly put it away. A clear and melodious voice sounded in Lu Yuan's ears, and her beautiful figure suddenly appeared in front of Lu Yuan's eyes. Gu Yina's purple eyes fluttered as she looked at the god-slaying spear that was pointed at her. Her beautiful face was filled with fear. She didn't know why, but when the spear pointed at her, she panicked. She had a strong sense of death. God-slaying spear, this name is not wrong. Gu Yina's beautiful face changed as she thought to herself. Why? Are you afraid? Hearing Gu Yina, Lu Yuan moved the god-slaying spear's tip away and stood in front of him with a faint smile on his face. I'm not afraid, but I'm a little panicked. This spear is too fierce. Gu Yina shook her head and said softly. You actually pointed it at me. Gu Yina pouted, looking at Lu Yuan with eyes full of resentment. Who asked you to provoke me? Blame me. Lu Yuan twitched his lips. This woman wanted to use her God King realm aura to suppress him, and she blamed him for taking out the god-slaying spear. However, even though he said that, he still quietly dispersed the god-slaying spear in his hand. Without the god-slaying spear, Gu Yina felt a lot more relaxed. She took 2 steps forward and threw herself into Lu Yuan's arms. She used her fist to gently punch Lu Yuan's chest. A gentle smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face as he gently wrapped an arm around Gu Yuna's slender body. His right hand stroked her silky, crystal-like silver hair. "Ner, looking at your aura just now, you seem to have gained a lot of benefits," Lu Yuan said with a smile as he stroked Gu Yuna's long hair. "Indeed, I have gained a lot of benefits. I have completely controlled the dragon god's heart. Moreover, after absorbing the power of the dragon god's soul, my strength has increased by quite a bit," Gu Yuna said softly, with a bright smile on her beautiful face. "Is that so? That's not bad." Lu Yuan's right hand paused and moved down slightly, holding Gu Yuna's delicate waist. He gently rested his chin on Gu Yuna's forehead and said softly, "It is indeed not bad. Also look." Gu Yuna raised her head slightly and raised a hand in front of Lu Yuan. Within her hand was a rhombus-shaped golden crystal that was radiating dazzling light. "The power of the golden dragon? No, this is the power of the golden dragon king." "That's right. You must have extracted the power of the golden dragon king from the dragon god's soul." Lu Yuan couldn't help but exclaim as he sensed the power within the rhombus-shaped golden crystal. "Hee, you really are as smart as ever." Gu Yuna smiled and didn't offer any retort. "Didn't I tell you to absorb it yourself? Why did you leave it for me?" Lu Yuan couldn't help but ask. "That's none of your business. I like it, so I'm going to leave it for you. Besides, I can't use the power of the Golden Dragon King," Gu Yuna said as she pouted slightly. A faint smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face. This little girl was trying to trick him again. How could she not use the power of the Golden Dragon King? "You!" Lu Yuan heaved a faint sigh before planting a kiss on her forehead. "Hurry up and take it," Gu Yuna urged. "All right." Lu Yuan accepted the golden crystal. He was going to refine a set of divine equipment, and this energy could be used to combine all of the pieces of his divine equipment. The power of the Golden Dragon King was extremely pure, so it could be used as a finishing touch. After stowing away the Golden Dragon King's energy crystal, Lu Yuan gently stroked Gu Yuna's cheek, and he planted a kiss on her lips. The flow of time in the Dragon Valley small world was different from that in the outside world. Perhaps only 2 days had passed in the outside world, but Lu Yuan had already been in the Dragon Valley for over a month, and he was already very eager for more. Gu Yuna closed her eyes slightly at the sight of Lu Yuan's kiss, and the two of them began to kiss in an intimate manner. Lu Yuan was very engrossed in his kiss, and Gu Yuna's response was also very passionate. The two of them kissed in silence, and faint 9-colored light rose up around them. As the 9-colored light rose up, all of the dragon skeletons in the dragon tomb began to radiate unique specks of light. Some of them were yellow, some of them were red, some of them were blue, and some of them were green. Countless specks of light drifted toward Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna, transforming in a boundless 9-colored auspicious clouds that enshrouded the two of them. Lu Yuan was struck by a sense of warmth, and both his divine body and spiritual power had been enhanced at the same time. "What's this?" Lu Yuan suddenly stopped, and a hint of astonishment and incredulity appeared in his eyes. "This is the blessing of the Dragon Clan." Gu Yuna's eyes also faltered slightly, and a hint of elation appeared in her eyes. Their lips were still connected, but their eyes met, and they already knew what the other party wanted to say. "Is this the blessing of the Dragon Clan?" Lu Yuan's voice traveled directly into Gu Yuna's mind. "That's right, it's our blessing." A hint of a smile appeared in Gu Yuna's purple eyes. She was very happy that their love had been blessed by all of the dragons in the Dragon Tomb. In a way, these dragon tribe members were her true family. Lu Yuan's heart also stirred slightly, and a hint of elation welled up in his heart. He also felt a greater sense of acknowledgement toward the dragons in the Dragon Tomb. Now, he was even more eager to resurrect all of the dragons that had fallen a long time ago after he became a god. If this was Gu Yuna's request in the past, then it was more of his own thoughts now. These dragons really were very adorable. "Nar," Lu Yuan transmitted his voice to her. "What is it?" Gu Yuna's purple eyes flashed slightly. "Will you marry me? Let them bear witness." Lu Yuan's voice sounded in Gu Yuna's mind. For some reason, he was suddenly struck by this urge. "Sure." Gu Yuna faltered slightly before replying with a flash of purple light in her eyes. Lu Yuan's eyes lit up, and he became even more engrossed in kissing Gu Yuna. Gu Yuna embraced Lu Yuan in an even more passionate manner. Another 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna bowed to heaven and earth in front of the dragon souls in the dragon tomb, and the mountain dragon king, water dragon king, and fire dragon king as witnesses. Even though there weren't as many guests as there had been in the past, in Gu Yuna's eyes, this was the best wedding ever. In fact, it was far better than the wedding that Lu Yuan had once promised her. She didn't care who the guests were, as she didn't know any of them. She also didn't care if the wedding would shock the entire continent, as there weren't many people on the entire continent that she cared about. All that mattered to her was this Dragon Valley. She was very pleased with her wedding with Lu Yuan in the Dragon Valley. In fact, compared to the weddings of Bibi Dawn and the others, she felt like her wedding was more unique and unique. This was a wedding that was unique to her, and it couldn't be replicated. Lu Yuan was naturally ecstatic at the sight of Gu Yuna's smile. He had only thought of this wedding on a whim, and he didn't think that Gu Yuna would actually prefer this type of wedding. He had initially wanted to give Gu Yuna the grandest and most lavish wedding, but he didn't think that Gu Yuna would be looking forward to something like that. However, the blessings of the dragon race had allowed him and Gu Yuna to have the most perfect wedding. As a newlywed, Lu Yuan naturally couldn't focus on his cultivation. As such, he only occasionally devoured the skulls that he had obtained and absorbed the enormous dragon power within the Dragon Valley to upgrade his external soul bone. Perhaps it was due to the fact that the left arm bone that had been fused with the Titan giant ape left arm bone and Neptunia left arm bone had developed some peculiar properties. Perhaps it was due to the fact that Lu Yuan had already infused it with his enormous dragon power and divine power, and it really did forcibly evolve to become a grade 1 divine bone. Lu Yuan couldn't help but be elated by this development. The evolution of the left arm bone meant that Lu Yuan's final shortcoming had been completely fixed, and it also meant that once he completed the new set of divine armor, there wouldn't be any weaknesses. Aside from that, he spent most of his remaining time with Gu Yuna. They were newlyweds, so they had to spend some time together. Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna also left the Dragon Tomb, and they explored the entire small world within the Dragon Valley during the past 2 months. The Dragon Valley was only a small world, but it was significantly larger than the Great Star Doe Forest, and there were treasures all over the place. Aside from dragon souls, there were also all types of rare and precious medicines. Lu Yuan also plucked some of these medicines. After all, as a pill refiner, he had no resistance to these types of rare and precious medicines. Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna walked hand in hand through the Dragon Tomb, and they finally returned to this place. 2 months had passed, and Gu Yuna had become even more beautiful. Of course, this was largely due to Lu Yuan's attentive care. The Fire Dragon King, Water Dragon King, Mountain Dragon King, and Titan Giant Ape Spirits were all waiting in the Dragon Tomb, and all of them cast resentful looks at Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna upon their return. Lu Yuan and Gu Yuna naturally weren't going to bring these light bulbs with them on their honeymoon, so he left all of them behind. Soul spirits and soul masters couldn't be too far apart from one another, but that didn't apply to them. Lu Yuan and all of them had reached a certain level of power, so they were able to keep very far apart from one another. At the very least, as long as Lu Yuan didn't leave the Dragon Valley, they would be fine. The Water Dragon King, Fire Dragon King, and Mountain Dragon King were all God-grade soul spirits, and even the Titan Giant Ape Spirits were over 100 meters tall, and its aura was extremely powerful. Soul spirits and soul rings were a single entity, and as the soul ring aged, the soul spirit would also become more powerful. Currently, its Titan soul ring was already at 950,000 years old, and the Titan Giant Ape Spirits had naturally benefited greatly from it. On top of that, it had been illuminated by clear aura divine power for 8 years, and the enhancements it had received were unimaginable. In terms of quality, it was no less than the average God-grade soul spirit. So even though it was far away from Lu Yuan, nothing would happen to it. It was exactly because of this that Lu Yuan had left all of them behind to wait for them to come back. However, with the 4 of them as companions, they wouldn't be lonely. Lu Yuan completely ignored the resentful looks that all of the soul spirits were giving him, and before they had a chance to say anything, he stowed all of them away into his sea of consciousness. They're so pitiful to have a master like you. Gu Yuna covered her mouth as she chuckled, and her purple eyes curved into crescents. How was that pitiful? They're very fortunate to have me as their master. Once we defeat the divine realm, I'll bestow upon each of them a godly position. Lu Yuan pursed his lips. They were extremely fortunate to have him as their master. Indeed, they're willing to follow us, so we can't mistreat them, Gu Yuna said with a serious smile. You're right. Lu Yuan nodded in agreement. Chapter 11:57. The Titan giant ape and the others were willing to sacrifice themselves to follow him, so he naturally wouldn't mistreat them. Setting aside everything else, all of their soul rings had been immensely helpful to Lu Yuan. Without the assistance of their soul rings, would Lu Yuan have been able to reach his current level? Would he have been able to contend with a first-tier god as a demigod? That was impossible. Lu Yuan's aptitude was indeed exceptional, but it was all thanks to their soul rings. As such, he felt very indebted to these soul spirits who had followed him. They didn't need anything else, but if he and Gu Yuna really did defeat the divine realm in the future, then they would be granted a godhood, so that would be his repayment. As such, he would reward anyone who was willing to follow him. All right, let's not talk about this anymore. We've already returned, and you've wasted 2 months. Go and do what you need to do, Gu Yuna said with a faint smile as she looked at Lu Yuan. Wasted 2 months? How could spending time with you be considered a waste of time? But you're right. It really is time to get down to business. Lu Yuan's eyes flashed slightly, and he gently planted a kiss on Gu Yuna's lips before finding a clean spot to sit down with his legs crossed. A warm smile appeared on Gu Yuna's face as she looked at Lu Yuan with a hint of affection in her eyes. Lu Yuan waved a hand through the air, and 2 streaks of golden light fell into his hands amid a flash of light. One of them was only half the size of his palm, and it was completely transparent and shimmering with golden light. It was a diamond-shaped golden crystal, and it was none other than the golden dragon king crystal that Gu Yuna had given him. The other streak of light was a golden bead that was around the size of a wash basin. It was exuding a rich fragrance, and the bead was smooth and translucent, exuding a faint dragon's might. This bead was naturally the dragon bead that had once resided in Neptunia's head. In the original novel, the deep-sea demonic whale king's whale bead could be transformed into the sea god's heart, so this Neptunia bead was naturally even more useful. Lu Yuan had kept it this entire time so that he could use it to condense a set of godly equipment. His divine armor was formed by the fire and water dragon king's wings and golden dragon battle armor, which were connected to all of his soul bones, so its power was naturally extraordinary. However, there was still a flaw, and that was that every single soul bone was unique and had its own special characteristics. Because they were basically all dragon soul bones, there was no resistance between them, and they wouldn't cause any discomfort to the user. However, it wasn't made from the same type of soul bone. It wasn't like Chihiro Snow's angelic armor, which was made from the same type of soul bone and the same age. As a result, Lu Yuan's divine equipment was like an amalgamation of all kinds of soul bones. It was a little messy and couldn't be truly integrated into a whole. Therefore, Lu Yuan planned to completely condense his godly equipment. He wanted to fuse the advantages and specialties of the various soul bones together to form a complete whole. He wanted to forge the strongest godly equipment. Aside from the soul bones themselves, condensing a set of godly equipment also required other types of energy to act as catalysts and fusing agents. The Neptunia bead played such a role. Of course, aside from the Neptunia bead, he also had the Golden Dragon King's crystal, so the difficulty of condensing a set of godly equipment had decreased significantly. Lu Yuan's soul bones all over his body lit up at the same time. Then, They all transformed, and the set of colorful godly equipment appeared on his body again. Clear chi divine power, appear. He murmured softly. His spiritual power surged, and white clear chi divine power surged out in a frenzy. It formed a white domain that tightly enveloped Lu Yuan. Condensing a set of godly equipment wasn't an easy task. The first step was to peel off the soul bones and use their divine power to modify them. This was an extremely painful process, and without the protection of clear chi divine power, even Lu Yuan might not be able to endure it. The second step was to use the power of the Neptunia bead and the Golden Dragon King's crystal to completely refine all parts of the set of godly equipment, thereby completely fusing them together. The third step was to attach the set of godly equipment to his body again. After that, he would use his clear chi divine power to nourish the set of godly equipment. Only after reaching this step could he truly complete the set of godly equipment. Lu Yuan took a glance at Gu Yuna before a determined look appeared in his eyes. The soul bones in his left and right arms flew out at the same time, transforming into a giant blue dragon and a giant golden dragon that danced in the air. Lu Yuan gritted his teeth as sweat dripped down his forehead. Veins bulged on his forehead as his soul bones were forcibly stripped off. This was an unimaginable pain to normal people. Obuchi, Guyana said in a soft voice. Her purple eyes were filled with tenderness. Her heart throbbed with pain at the sight of Lu Yuan's pain. However, even though her heart ached, she didn't try to stop Lu Yuan. This was Lu Yuan's decision, and she respected Lu Yuan's decision. Furthermore, Lu Yuan really did need to become more powerful. Again, Lu Yuan snorted softly as his left and right leg bones were stripped off at the same time. Two giant dragons, one white and one black, soared into the sky and roared into the sky. Lu Yuan couldn't help but clench his fists as the pain assaulted him once again. He channeled his clear chi divine power to modify the 4 soul bones that he had stripped off. Neptunia's pearl floated in the air as golden energy radiance was injected into the 4 soul bones. Every set of godly equipment that was formed from the soul bones carried a layer of energy from Neptunia's dragon pearl. Skull and torso bones stripped them off. The skull and torso bones were stripped off at the same time under Lu Yuan's control. The pain that assaulted him in that instant caused Lu Yuan's vision to turn black, and he almost fainted. Generally speaking, the skull and torso bones couldn't be stripped off. However, that was only for humans. Gods were an exception. With godly power, even external soul bones could be stripped off and modified, let alone the skull and torso bones. In the original work, when Tang Xin went through the 9th test, he had to strip off his soul bones and modify them. At that time, even the external soul bone, the 8 spider spears, was stripped off and modified into the 8 wings of the sea god. If the sea god could do something like that, then Lu Yuan naturally couldn't do it any worse than him. Furthermore, he had the protection of the clear chi divine power and Lu Yuan's divine body. So even if his soul bone was stripped away, his life wouldn't be in any danger. However, the pain that was even more intense than death by 1,000 cuts was unavoidable. It's so F***ing painful, especially when I have to do it to myself. There are only a few people in this world who are as crazy as me. Lu Yuan sucked in a breath of cold air. All 6 of his proper soul bones had been stripped off, and the pain was truly heart-wrenching. Lu Yuan's face suddenly turned green when he recalled that he still had 6 external soul bones. Back then, he was overjoyed when he absorbed the external soul bones, but now, he was a little regretful. Stripping the proper soul bones was already so painful. Wouldn't the external soul bones be more painful? Chapter 1158. He was in as much pain as he was surprised at the start. Lu Yuan's heart was pounding as he looked at his hands. He had already reached this stage. No matter how painful it was, he had to grit his teeth and bear with it. Atlas palm bone, dark golden terror claw, peel them off. Lu Yuan made up his mind and forced the atlas palm bone and the dark golden terror claw out of his body under the influence of his will. Pain, heart-wrenching pain. If the pain of the main soul bone was bone-piercing, then the pain of the external soul bone being peeled off was soul-piercing. The external soul bone was connected to one's origin. This was also the reason why it could evolve. It was also because of this that peeling it off was as if a part of one's body had been cut off. Lu Yuan's teeth were chattering, and his forehead was covered in sweat. The pain of his two palm bones being peeled off made him feel as if his soul was being torn apart. It was truly unbearable. Obuchi. Gu Yuna's purple eyes narrowed, and she looked as if she couldn't bear to see Lu Yuan in such pain. Kacha. Another sound was heard. Lu Yuan shook off the 3 pairs of dragon wings on his back. The peeling of the 3 pairs of dragon wings caused Lu Yuan's entire back to go numb. The blood vessels on his neck burst, and the veins on his forehead were exposed. His handsome face was filled with pain. Lu Yuan dared to swear that he had never experienced such pain before. Whether it was the time when his bones were broken by the Blood Emperor, or the time when his body was tempered by the holy flames on the 9 steps to heaven, they paled in comparison to this pain. Lu Yuan clenched his fists tightly, and his body exuded golden blood energy. After his soul bones were peeled off one after another, his aura was extremely weak. He stood there, and his entire body seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. This time, Gu Yuna couldn't sit still anymore. Seeing Lu Yuan's body trembling and his pained expression, she couldn't help but stand up and rush towards Lu Yuan. She dove into the domain formed by the clear Qi divine power and gently supported Lu Yuan. "Nar, what are you doing here? Get out!" Lu Yuan said weakly with a pale face. "Obuchi, that's enough. That's really enough. Don't continue like this. The soul bones you've extracted are enough to construct a perfect set of god equipment." Gu Yuna held Lu Yuan in her arms, and her eyes were filled with heartache as she spoke in a gentle voice. "No, it's not enough. There's still one last step. If I don't remove the golden dragon battle armor, my divine equipment will never be perfect. The golden dragon battle armor is the most important among my divine equipment. It's the core and foundation that connects all of my soul bone divine equipment." Lu Yuan shook his head and said with a resolute expression, "But this piece of armor soul bone covers your entire body. The pain of removing it is even more intense than all the soul bones you've removed before. Do you not want to live anymore?" Gu Yuna glared at Lu Yuan with indescribable fury burning in her purple eyes. Lu Yuan faltered slightly upon seeing this before a faint smile appeared on his face. He raised a hand and gently stroked Gu Yuna's beautiful face. The golden dragon battle armor was his first soul bone, and it was the most important soul bone that he used the most frequently. After many evolutions, the golden dragon battle armor was now superior to all of his soul bones. Every time he absorbed a soul ring, every time he became more powerful, and every time his bloodline became more powerful, the golden dragon battle armor benefited the most from it. After absorbing the 9th soul ring, the golden dragon battle armor had already become a grade 1 god bone. After that, the golden dragon battle armor evolved again with the influx of dragon power from the Dragon Valley. The Water, Fire, Wind Dragon King's 3 wings, the Atlas palm bone, the dark golden terraclaw bear's right palm bone, and the Tao Ye's skull had all evolved, but they were only at the pinnacle of grade 1 god bones. They were not much different from the Mountain Dragon King's torso bone. Only the golden dragon battle armor, the external soul bone that he had obtained from the gold scale imperial dragon tortoise, which was an external soul bone that was born from a super soul beast that possessed a faint golden dragon bloodline, had reached the highest level after this evolution. Right now, the golden dragon battle armor had completely surpassed the level of a grade 1 god bone and reached the level of a half-step godly king. Just this set of golden dragon battle armor alone was already at the level of a half-step godly king, and it could be considered a quasi-transcendent divine tool. It was also because of this that removing the golden dragon battle armor was the most difficult, and the pain was also the most intense. It was far more painful than the other soul bones. Even so, at this point, he had no way out. He could either not do it or do it to the best of his ability. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Lu Yuan gently kissed Gu Yuna's forehead as he spoke in a gentle voice. Gu Yuna grabbed Lu Yuan's right hand with a resolute expression and said, "No, I'm worried. I won't allow you to continue messing around like this. Nah, listen to me. I have the esoteric character, so I'll be fine. Look, I've already completely recovered." Lu Yuan had already completely returned to normal after using the esoteric character. However, his aura was still very weak. After all, every soul bone that was removed from his body was a drop in his strength. "No, I won't." Gu Yuna still shook her head with a look of resistance on her face. The Golden Dragon battle armor was no small matter. Given Lu Yuan's current state, if he were to remove it, he might faint from the pain. She didn't want to see Lu Yuan in such pain again. "Gu Yuna, are you not going to listen to me anymore?" After failing to persuade her twice, Lu Yuan spoke in an indifferent voice as he stared intently at Gu Yuna. There was a hint of sternness in his voice. "I'm not listening. No matter what you say today, I won't listen." Gu Yuna's purple eyes refused to budge an inch as she stubbornly stared at Lu Yuan. After looking at each other for a while, Lu Yuan sighed softly as he gently embraced Gu Yuna. "Nar, I'm very happy that you're so concerned about me. However, with the protection of the clear aura divine power and the esoteric character, I really won't be in any danger at all. As for pain, if I want to attain extraordinary strength, I naturally have to endure unimaginable pain. If I want to forge the #1 divine armor that has never been seen before, how can I do it without suffering a little? There's no free lunch in this world. You have to put in a lot of effort to reap the rewards. I've already endured so much pain. Do you want me to stop at this final step? Do you want me to suffer all that pain in vain?" "Nar," Lu Yuan asked in a soft voice. I didn't mean that. I just don't want to see you struggling in pain. Seeing you in pain really makes my heart ache." Gu Yuna hurriedly spoke as her eyes flickered with bone-deep affection. As the Silver Dragon King, she had seen the most bloody and cruel scenes. She had also heard the most mournful wails. She could be heartless to everyone in the world, and she could also watch people die in front of her without feeling anything. However, Lu Yuan was her lover. He was the softest part of her heart. She really couldn't bear to see Lu Yuan in pain. Every time Lu Yuan screamed in pain, she felt as if her heart was being cut by a knife. She would rather be the one in pain than Lu Yuan. Hearing Gu Yuna's words, Lu Yuan's eyes softened as he gently kissed Gu Yuna's cheek. Their foreheads touched as the two of them stared at each other. "Nar, I'll only ask you one thing. Do you believe in me?" Lu Yuan asked in a soft voice. His voice was filled with indescribable seriousness. "I've always believed in you." Gu Yuna nodded slightly in response. "Good. What I want to do will definitely succeed, right?" Lu Yuan asked. "Yes." Gu Yuna's eyes flickered slightly as she replied. Lu Yuan smiled gently as he gently pecked Gu Yuna's red lips. Do you still remember what you said on our wedding day? You said that no matter what I do, you'll always support me unswervingly. No matter what I say, you'll always listen to me. What about your performance just now? Are you going to go back on your words now?" "I don't want to go back on my words. It's just that." Gu Yuna opened her mouth to argue, but was interrupted by Lu Yuan. "Since you don't want to go back on your words, then listen to me now. Obediently close your eyes and stand aside. If I don't tell you to open your eyes, you're not allowed to secretly open them. If I don't tell you to, you're not allowed to move. Do you hear me?" Lu Yuan asked in a soft voice. "All right, it's settled." Lu Yuan pulled Gu Yuna to the side and gently closed her eyes for her. Looking at Gu Yuna's flawless body, Lu Yuan couldn't help but deeply kiss her. In a gentle voice, he said, "No, thank you for your concern. I love you, but if you close your eyes and can't see, then you won't feel any more heartache. You're only allowed to move when I come back. If you move on your own, then I'll punish you. When the time comes, I'll spank your little butt." Lu Yuan smiled and kissed her again. He then turned around, and his expression suddenly became serious. Lu Yuan walked back to the original spot again. Gu Yuna clenched her fists as she struggled internally. Her eyelashes trembled slightly as she tried to open her eyes countless times. However, when she recalled Lu Yuan's words, she sighed deeply and chose to give up in the end. She knew that Lu Yuan was very determined. Once Lu Yuan made up his mind, no one could stop him. She couldn't, and neither could Chihiro Snow or BB Dawn. Obuchi, you can do it. Gu Yuna's red lips trembled. She was cheering for Lu Yuan in her heart. On the other side, Lu Yuan raised his head slightly and looked at the 11 soul bone sets above him. Each soul bone set shone with a different light, and there was a layer of golden light on each soul bone set. That was the essence of Neptunia's dragon pearl. Golden dragon armor. Lu Yuan shouted, and the golden dragon armor appeared. Separate. Lu Yuan whispered again. The golden dragon armor started to separate from Lu Yuan's body. Suddenly, an unparalleled pain attacked Lu Yuan. From the beginning to the end, every muscle and nerve ending was screaming in pain. Lu Yuan's entire body convulsed, and his teeth creaked as he gritted them. He clenched his fists so tightly that his fingernails dug into his flesh. Golden blood flowed out slowly and dripped down from Lu Yuan's palm onto the ground. Lu Yuan's handsome face was completely red, and his eyes were filled with golden blood vessels. His spiritual sea shook violently, and the intense pain shook Lu Yuan's soul. His spiritual sea, which was as firm as a rock, started to surge. The Water Dragon King, Mountain Dragon King, and the other spirits helped to calm his spiritual sea. The spirit-cleansing seed emitted a white light, nourishing Lu Yuan's body and protecting Lu Yuan's safety. What a crazy guy. In Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness, the Fire Dragon King could not help but sigh as it tried to soothe Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness. He is indeed crazy, but he's also very brave, the Water Dragon King said softly with a hint of admiration in his voice. This is our master, the master who suppressed the dragon god's aura. The Mountain Dragon King's deep voice sounded, and his eyes were filled with admiration. The Titan giant ape threw its head back and roared, "Roar, my lord! You're amazing!" Even though his strength had increased significantly, the Titan giant ape's simple and honest personality was still the same. Among the 4 spirits, the Titan giant ape had the lowest status. He was just an errand boy. However, the Fire Dragon King, the Water Dragon King, and the Mountain Dragon King were all very fond of the Titan giant ape. After all, the Titan giant ape was so simple-minded, so it was very difficult for anyone to dislike him. The 3 Dragon Kings smiled in unison upon hearing the Titan giant ape's words. Just as the Titan giant ape had said, they also felt that Lu Yuan was very powerful. "Arg! Break away!" Lu Yuan gritted his teeth and forced those words out his mouth. He abruptly struggled, and his golden dragon battle armor was completely detached from his body. Golden blood mist spread out in all directions, and Lu Yuan's legs gave out from under him, and he collapsed to the ground. Pain, numbness, and spasms all over his body. Lu Yuan's body trembled involuntarily, and he felt as if his thoughts were blurring. His entire body was so sore and powerless that he couldn't even raise a finger. The light in his dual pupils dimmed, and the blood essence circulation in his body slowed down. His aura instantly became extremely feeble. "Am I going to faint?" Lu Yuan murmured. "No, I can't faint. If I faint now, all my efforts will be for naught." This thought flashed across Lu Yuan's mind, and his strong willpower suddenly burst forth. Clear aura scripture, circulate. Under the control of Lu Yuan's strong willpower, the clear aura scripture's soul power started to circulate rapidly. At the same time, the secret word was also activated. Clear aura and divine power enveloped his body, and he started to recover. Lu Yuan's complexion quickly improved under the 3-pronged treatment. The injuries caused by the golden dragon battle armor were quickly healed, but the feeling of weakness still couldn't be dispelled. After a few minutes, Lu Yuan stood up and looked at the 12 soul bone sets floating in the sky. There was a smile on his face. It wasn't easy to completely detach all 12 soul bones. If he had to do it again, he really wouldn't have the courage to do it again. Compared to this kind of pain, death was an extremely joyful thing. I'm probably the weakest I've ever been in my entire life. Any titled Douluo can probably kill me at this moment. Lu Yuan mocked himself as he glanced at Gu Yuna. His heart skipped a beat, and he walked towards her. Chapter 1159. Gu Yuna's eyes trembled slightly, and she could hear Lu Yuan's approaching footsteps. Even though her eyes were closed, her senses were still very sharp. Great, Xiao Yuan is fine. Gu Yuna couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Lu Yuan made his way over to Gu Yuna before stopping in front of her. He inhaled Gu Yuna's alluring fragrance and looked at her breathtakingly beautiful face, and he couldn't help but reach out with his right hand to gently caress her cheek. "Nar, you can open your eyes now," Lu Yuan said with a gentle smile. Gu Yuna opened her eyes, and dazzling light burst forth from within. She stared at Lu Yuan with a hint of resentment in her purple eyes. "All right, you're still angry. How about I apologize to you?" Lu Yuan chuckled. He knew why Gu Yuna was acting like this. Gu Yuna was still a little displeased with his insistence on stripping away her golden dragon battle armor. Gu Yuna harumphed coldly before turning her head away with an expression that said, "I'm ignoring you." A wry smile appeared on Lu Yuan's face before he stepped forward and drew Gu Yuna into his arms. "Nar, don't be angry anymore, all right?" Lu Yuan gently kissed Gu Yuna's cheek in a gentle and placid voice. "Not good," Gu Yuna replied in a cold voice. "Sigh." Lu Yuan heaved a forlorn sigh before stepping forward and sealing Gu Yuna's lips with his own. There was nothing he could do about it. If he couldn't convince her, then he would have to kiss her first. Gu Yuna struggled gently as she thumped her hands against Lu Yuan's chest. After a short while, her struggles gradually subsided, and she began to respond to his kiss. Their lips parted, and Lu Yuan looked at Gu Yuna with a gentle expression. Gu Yuna's eyes were glazed over, and there was a thin layer of mist in her eyes as she slumped feebly into Lu Yuan's arms. "Now," Lu Yuan called out softly, his voice filled with deep affection. Gu Yuna raised her head, and her purple eyes flashed. She raised her right hand and pulled Lu Yuan's ear, causing Lu Yuan to grimace in pain. "You bastard! All you do is mess around and make me worry," Gu Yuna complained, but her voice was full of concern. She couldn't stop Lu Yuan from doing what he wanted to do, so she could only worry and be afraid. "I promise this is the last time. It won't happen again," Lu Yuan said seriously. "Like hell I'll believe you." Gu Yuna rolled her eyes at Lu Yuan. She had never believed in Lu Yuan's so-called guarantee. It was simply unreliable. On the contrary, the things that Lu Yuan usually mentioned without leaving a trace were completed one by one. After knowing Lu Yuan for so long, she had already known Lu Yuan's personality quite well. Hearing this, Lu Yuan smiled bitterly. It seemed that no one believed in his guarantee these days. BB Dawn was like this, Chihiro Snow was like this, and now Gu Yuna was like this. However, thinking of those girlfriends he had, he was relieved. After all, he didn't do it first, so Gu Yuna naturally wouldn't believe him. Don't do such dangerous things in the future. Even if you don't care about yourself, you have to consider our feelings. I know I can't control you, but if you continue to mess around and don't take your life seriously, I won't talk to you anymore. Don't think I'm joking. I'm serious. In this world, the only thing I care about is you. I can watch anyone die, but I don't want you to be hurt. Do you understand?" Gu Yuna stared at Lu Yuan and said with a serious face, I know that my Na-er is the best." Lu Yuan held Gu Yuna tightly in his arms and chuckled. "Don't try to fool around with me. I'm telling you very seriously. I don't care what you like to do, but you have to protect yourself first. Otherwise, I won't talk to you anymore. Do you know how hard it is for me when you're in pain? Do you know how I feel when you're howling with grief and anguish while I can only stand beside you? This feeling of fear and anxiety is driving me to the brink of a mental breakdown. I don't want to experience this feeling again. Do you understand?" Gu Yuna looked at Lu Yuan with a meaningful expression. "I understand." Lu Yuan held onto Gu Yuna's hand and nodded with a firm expression. He could naturally sense Gu Yuna's concern, and his heart was filled with joy. In all honesty, if it weren't for the fact that he had no other choice, who would want to detach his soul bone? If he could choose, he would rather die than experience this pain again. This kind of pain was simply unbearable for humans. Even with his constitution, spiritual power, and iron-like willpower, he had almost fainted. This kind of pain was simply unimaginable. If I could go back in time, I wish I hadn't obtained the Golden Dragon battle armor. Lu Yuan lamented internally. The Golden Dragon battle armor was his favorite external soul bone, and it had always provided him with a lot of help. He had always been very thankful that he had obtained the Golden Dragon battle armor. However, only after experiencing the pain of detaching his soul bone did he realize just how naive he had been back then. There was no ultimate pain, only greater pain. He would never forget the excruciating pain of detaching his Golden Dragon battle armor for the rest of his life. Thankfully, this pain was over, and it was time for him to reap the fruits of his labor. Lu Yuan looked at Gu Yuna and asked in a gentle voice, "Nur, do you want to see how I materialize my divine armor?" "All right." Gu Yuna nodded slightly, and her voice was gentle and pleasant. Since Lu Yuan had already agreed to her request, she couldn't be bothered to say anything else. If she said anything more, it would only annoy Lu Yuan. She was a smart girl and naturally understood these things. Furthermore, Gu Yuna was actually very curious about what kind of divine equipment Lu Yuan would be able to refine from his soul bone after going through so much pain and agony. After receiving Gu Yuna's consent, Lu Yuan held her hand and walked towards the soul bone. The 12 soul bones all floated in midair. 6 were the main soul bones, and the other 6 were external soul bones. These were all Lu Yuan's soul bones. One of them was a half-step, godly, king-level Golden Dragon battle armor, and the remaining 11 were all Class 1 godly bones. Lu Yuan could guarantee that such a luxurious combination was definitely one of a kind in the entire Douluo continent, and perhaps even the entire Douluo divine realm. Neptunia's pearl, which was originally floating in midair, had already disappeared. However, every single soul bone had been imbued with the power of Neptunia's dragon pearl. As long as Lu Yuan unleashed his pure aura divine power, he would be able to successfully integrate all of the soul bones. Lu Yuan paused slightly and turned around slightly. He smiled at Gu Yuna and said, "Nah, watch my performance." "All right." Gu Yuna nodded gently, and her purple eyes shone with dazzling light. Lu Yuan smiled and raised his head slightly to look at the 12 soulbone sets. Lu Yuan raised his hand, and a white light was released from his hand. This was the purest pure aura divine power. The dense white light enveloped the 12 soulbone sets. Under Lu Yuan's control, the blue left arm set, the golden right arm set, the black right leg set, the white right leg set, the black head set, and the white right leg set all flew out one by one. After that, they collided with each other and quickly rotated. The 12 soul bone sets collided with each other and then rotated rapidly, forming a huge 9-colored energy whirlwind. Lu Yuan's spiritual power stepped into it and guided the Bless You soul bone sets as they collided with each other and fused together. With pure aura divine power as the foundation and the golden dragon battle armor as the core, the 12 soul bone sets began to truly fuse and assemble. "Let me give you a hand," Gu Yuna muttered softly, and a burst of 9-colored energy emerged from her body and fused into the huge 9-colored energy whirlpool above her. The power of the dragon god. You're using the power of the dragon god's heart? Lu Yuan couldn't help but glance at Gu Yuna. "Yes, I'm helping you. With the power of the dragon god, it'll be easier for them to fuse. After all, the Douluo dragon clan basically originates from the dragon god," Gu Yuna said softly. "That's true." Lu Yuan nodded in agreement. No matter what, all of his soul bones were basically dragon soul bones, and with the power of the dragon god, it was indeed a lot easier. "You've reminded me of something." Lu Yuan's mind stirred, and the 5-clawed golden dragon king's golden blood energy also seeped into the soul bone sets as a kind of fusion power. with the power of the dragon god and the five-clawed golden dragon king's bloodline power. The speed of the divine armor's condensation was greatly increased. Less than 6 hours later, the divine armor's fusion was basically complete. The colorful soul bones set had already disappeared, and the divine armor that appeared in midair was entirely nine-colored, and it was radiating dazzling nine-colored light. Extremely terrifying energy fluctuations were imbued within the divine armor. There's one last step left. Lu Yuan picked up a rhombus-shaped golden crystal. This was formed from the purest golden dragon king energy, and it was specifically used as a finishing touch. Lu Yuan was going to use this crystal to completely stabilize the divine armor, and at the same time, he was going to unleash its full power. He flicked his finger, and the golden rhombus-shaped crystal disappeared into the chest of the divine armor. Brilliant light immediately erupted from the divine armor, and all of its aura was completely unleashed. Terrifying divine might proliferated through the air in a frenzy, and a loud dragon's roar reverberated throughout the heavens. The winds and clouds in the sky suddenly changed, and dragon clouds surged violently. Boundless dragon clouds surged into the divine armor in a frenzy, carrying out the final baptism for the divine armor. After an indeterminate period of time, a buzzing sound rang out from the divine armor, and it was finally complete. A nine-colored golden pillar of light erupted from the divine armor, and it shot straight into the heavens. The divine armor hovered in midair, and it was emanating boundless divine light. Good, very good. Lu Yuan wore an extremely pleased expression on his face. The aura emanating from the divine armor was not inferior in the slightest to that of the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear. The Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear was the most powerful super divine tool, and from the looks of it, this set of divine armor had perhaps reached the pinnacle of super divine tools, just like the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear. Come! Lu Yuan waved a hand, and the entire set of divine armor instantly disassembled before quickly fusing into Lu Yuan's body. Lu Yuan's entire body began to emit nine-colored golden light, and the divine armor quickly covered Lu Yuan's body. Boundless energy surged, and Lu Yuan's aura began to skyrocket crazily. Originally, his aura had declined due to the stripping of his soul bone, but at this moment his aura skyrocketed and soon surpassed his original peak state, reaching a whole new height. Even Gu Yina, who was standing beside Lu Yuan, couldn't help but raise her eyebrows slightly. Even she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows at this aura. What a powerful amplification. Lu Yuan clenched his fist and felt that his strength had reached an unprecedented height. If his original aura was comparable to that of a first-tier god, then his current aura was infinitely close to that of a divine king. Coupled with the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear, even if he didn't use the God-slaying spear, Lu Yuan might be able to exchange blows with a divine king. Of course, this was only Lu Yuan's own guess. Without fighting, no one would know the specific situation. As for how strong a divine king was, even Lu Yuan himself didn't know. But anyway, it wasn't something a first-tier god could compare with. It was basically impossible for a first-tier god to win against a divine king, even if they had a super divine tool, because a divine king also had a super divine tool. However, not to mention winning, just exchanging blows, Lu Yuan still had some confidence in relying on the new divine armor and the Dragon Emperor Draining Spring Spear. He might not win, but he definitely wouldn't lose. After all, his secret character, and so on weren't just for show. With a thought, Lu Yuan sized up the divine armor on his body, and he was extremely satisfied. The new divine armor got rid of the colorful and messy state, and perfectly merged all the soul bone sets together. The nine-color divine armor was incomparably gorgeous, and it exuded an indescribable sense of nobility. There were gorgeous patterns on the left and right arms, and there were even two divine dragon shoulder ornaments on the shoulders. The dragon mouths were slightly open, and it was majestic. The chest area was densely covered with layered armor, and there were beautiful and exquisite cloud patterns on it. Outside the armor, There was a thick breastplate that covered the entire chest area. There was a bright pearl on the breastplate that was emitting 9-colored golden light, and there were 2 whistling, 9-colored divine dragons engraved on it, surrounding and protecting the bright pearl in the middle. The lower part of the body was equally gorgeous, and the scale-like armor covered the lower part of the body. There were also divine dragon patterns on both sides of the boots. At the intersection of the upper and lower body armor, there was a 9-colored golden rhombus-shaped gem, and there was also an extremely exquisite divine dragon engraving on this gem. There were 9 divine dragon patterns on the entire set of divine armor, and it also represented the 99 Supremes. On the back of the divine armor, there were 3 pairs of huge 9-colored golden dragon wings. The dragon wings were gently extended, and there was a huge amount of energy gathered in them, and it continuously flowed into Lu Yuan's body. Lu Yuan's mind moved, and the golden and jade Dragon Emperor Draining Spring spear appeared in his hand. He pointed the spear horizontally. The gorgeous divine armor, the powerful weapon, and together with Lu Yuan's looks, made him look extraordinarily handsome, and it made Gu Yuna's eyes light up. So handsome! Gu Yuna's little heart pounded slightly, and she couldn't help but reach out to touch Lu Yuan's face. Lu Yuan was already extremely handsome, and now with the help of the divine armor, he was even more handsome. Even Gu Yuna, who was intimate with him day and night, couldn't help but look infatuated. Chapter 1160. Seeing Gu Yuna like this, Lu Yuan couldn't help but smile and gently grabbed her jade-like hand. "Do I look good?" Lu Yuan asked with a chuckle. "Yes." Gu Yuna's red lips opened slightly, and she nodded with a serious expression. The current Lu Yuan was indeed a little too handsome. "How good is it?" Lu Yuan gently hugged Gu Yuna and asked with a smile. "Very good, very good." Gu Yuna's purple eyes flickered slightly, and she couldn't help but say, "Then do you like it?" Lu Yuan lowered his head and approached Gu Yuna. The two of them were very close, and he could clearly smell the faint body fragrance on Gu Yuna's body. This fragrance was intoxicating. "I like it." Gu Yuna spat out 2 words in a low voice, looking at Lu Yuan with infatuation and deep affection. "I also like you very much, Ner." The corners of Lu Yuan's mouth curled up slightly, and he directly kissed Gu Yuna's red lips. Gu Yuna paused slightly, and her red lips trembled, and she actually took the initiative to kiss him. Their lips met, and there was a thick sweetness that couldn't be melted away. Lu Yuan's mind moved, and he directly took Gu Yuna out of the dragon tomb, found a secluded and beautiful place, and the two of them had a deeper conversation. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed. In these 2 years, Lu Yuan had already completely absorbed the remaining golden dragon soul ring, and his cultivation had gradually increased to an unfathomable realm. After that, Lu Yuan wholeheartedly comprehended the clear air divine seed and the secret character Lin that he obtained from signing in. In the blink of an eye, it was already here. In the dragon tomb, Lu Yuan sat cross-legged, and his whole body exuded a bright white light. He was comprehending the power of destiny, and he had already comprehended the clear air divine seed to the final juncture. As long as he could successfully comprehend the mystery of the power of destiny, then he could completely comprehend the entire clear air divine seed in one fell swoop and become a god of laws. Therefore, at this moment, he was exceptionally engrossed and had completely sunk into a state where he forgot about everything around him. Not far away from Lu Yuan, Gu Yuna was sitting cross-legged. She was looking at Lu Yuan with her beautiful eyes, and there was deep affection in her eyes. Other than studying the dragon god's heart, she spent the rest of her time sizing up Lu Yuan. It had been 2 years since Lu Yuan taught her the secret of Lin, and she had only just learned it. As one of the most powerful techniques of the human race, it was indeed rather difficult for a silver dragon monarch like Gu Yuna to comprehend them. On the other hand, Lu Yuan was much faster than Gu Yuna in comprehending the secret character of Lin. Now that he had comprehended the secret character of Lin to a certain level, It would be of great help to his battle prowess. It was not something that Gu Yuna could compare with. After failing to comprehend the secret character of Lin for a long time, Gu Yuna had already given up on comprehending it. She felt that being able to learn the secret character of Lin to improve her battle prowess was already good enough. She wasn't interested in Lu Yuan yet. Gu Yuna was very satisfied with the 2 years that she had spent with Lu Yuan in the Dragon Valley. There was a wide smile on her face every day. The only downside was that Lu Yuan had entered a critical period recently. He hadn't opened his eyes for 3 months. She also hadn't spoken to Lu Yuan for 3 months. Besides, it's so boring. But Obuchi looks like he's about to break through his final shackles. I can't disturb him. Gu Yuna muttered softly. Her purple eyes were fixed on Lu Yuan without blinking. In a dark forest in the Sun-Moon Empire, in the Lake of Blood, a blood-red figure slowly emerged. His body was emitting a blood-red light, and a thick black fog quickly swept out in all directions from his body. Half a year has passed. Soul Devil Feather, you've finally become an ultimate Douluo. We can get down to business now. A streak of black light flew out of the crimson figure's body. The light flashed and turned into a blurry black figure. The figure was a little illusory, but it exuded a terrifying aura. He looked up into the sky and laughed. His voice was sharp and piercing and carried a strong sense of evil. Are you sure you could defeat that guy with your strength? The crimson figure asked softly. His voice was hoarse, and there was a strong killing intent in his voice. Of course I can. That kid is nothing. I can defeat him in a matter of minutes. The black figure snorted coldly. His voice was full of disdain. Then why did you lose so miserably that day? The crimson figure's voice sounded again. What do you know? Right now, this king is just a clone. That brat's strength is indeed not bad. He is on par with this king's clone back then. However, if he didn't cheat that day, how could he have won against this king? In front of this king's true body, that brat is just an ant. This king can crush him to death with a single finger. As if the crimson figure's words had hit his sore spot, the black figure suddenly became agitated and said loudly, Really? The crimson figure asked aloud, Are you doubting me? The black figure said faintly, and his scarlet eyes flashed with a fierce light. I wouldn't dare. After all, that person is too strong. I'm just worried. The crimson figure hurriedly said. These 2 figures were the holy son of the Holy Ghost cult, Soul Devil Feather, and the evil god behind the Holy Ghost cult. When Soul Devil Feather used Blood Escape to escape, the falling crystal was cut in half by Lu Yuan, and the black figure escaped with the other half. Who would have thought that these 2 fellows, who were escaping at the same time, would run into each other? And from the looks of it, they seem to have a new plan. Don't worry, as long as my main body breaks free from the shackles, that kid is just an ant. I can destroy him with a wave of my hand. But Soul Devil Feather, are you really willing to sacrifice your soul and life to summon me? The black figure looked at Soul Devil Feather and said coldly. Soul Devil Feather gritted his teeth, and the expression in his eyes changed slightly. In the past 6 months, he had used the evil technique taught by the black figure to kill millions of creatures in a short period of time and absorb their life force to finally raise his cultivation to the limit Douluo level. The blood of millions of creatures had gathered to form the blood-red lake in front of him. The black figure had a sacrificial method, which was to use the blood of millions of creatures as the foundation and the life and soul of unlimited Douluo as the guide to use the blood sacrifice method to summon his main body. This blood sacrifice method was not only heartless, but also required unlimited Douluo to be willing to sacrifice their life and soul. It was because of this that this blood sacrifice method had never appeared before. After all, there are very few people who could become limit Douluo, and these people were all people with strong minds. For example, people like Chou Mui, Emperor Qing, and Emperor Bai pursued great strength to dominate and satisfy their desires. How could they sacrifice themselves to summon the black figure's main body? This was simply impossible. Every man for himself. Even the Pasizi, who had devoted his life to the sea god, had hesitated when it came to sacrificing his life. The best proof was when he attacked Tang San in the original work. As for the people of the Holy Ghost cult, there was no need to talk about them. Chapter 1161. Therefore, the Black Shadow decided to use another method, which was to unify the continent. By unifying the Douluo continent, it could use the powerful destiny of the two continents to help it break through the cage and reappear in the world. However, the Holy Ghost Church was completely annihilated in the Battle of the Extreme North. This plan was completely ruined, and the only path left was the blood sacrifice summoning. Coincidentally, the Black Shadow met Soul Devil Feather. Soul Devil Feather was adopted by Cho Muyi from a young age. From birth, he was a member of the Holy Ghost Church and was incomparably loyal to them. To Soul Devil Feather, Cho Muyi was like a biological father, and their relationship was extremely deep. To Cho Muyi, these were the two most important things in his life. As for the Holy Spirit sect and Cho Muyi, both of them had died at Lu Yuan's hands. Thus, Soul Devil Feather wanted nothing more than to eat Lu Yuan's flesh, drink his blood, and tear apart his bones. However, Lu Yuan's strength was far superior to Soul Devil Feather's. It was impossible for Soul Devil Feather to rely on himself to take revenge. It was also because of this that the Black Shadow began to persuade him. Under the Black Shadow's bewitchment, Soul Devil Feather began to walk the path of blood sacrifice. The power of hatred was extremely terrifying. It could make people go crazy. The deeper Soul Devil Feather's feelings for the Holy Ghost Church and Cho Muyi, the deeper his hatred for Lu Yuan was. Using Soul Devil Feather's hatred, the Black Shadow bewitched him to slaughter millions of living beings and use their life force to reach the level of an ultimate Douluo in just half a year. Soul Devil Feather's foundation was definitely unstable, but the Black Shadow didn't care. As long as he was an ultimate Douluo, it was fine. The Black Shadow only needed the life and soul of an ultimate Douluo. Now, everything was ready, and they had reached the final step. Hearing the Black Shadow's question, Soul Devil Feather's expression changed, and he struggled in his heart. For him to take the initiative to sacrifice his own life and soul, he was definitely unwilling in his heart. But as soon as he thought of how Cho Muyi had taken care of him, as well as how the Holy Spirit Church had been destroyed, the fires of hatred in his heart burned uncontrollably. "Are you sure your main body can kill that guy after I sacrifice myself?" Soul Devil Feather asked with some worry. Of course, this king's true body is a God King. Do you know what a God King is? That's the pinnacle of the world. Even in the divine realm, there aren't many who are a match for me, let alone that brat. In my eyes, he's just an ant. Moreover, Soul Devil Feather, you can only trust this king. With just you alone, you will never be able to take revenge. The Black Shadow laughed sinisterly. His laughter was filled with disdain. Hearing this, Soul Demon Feather clenched his fists, his eyes bloodshot. Although what the Black Shadow said was unpleasant to hear, it was the truth. He would never be able to take revenge on his own. What should I do? The Soul Demon Feather's eyes flashed as he asked faintly. He had already made up his mind. Even if he had to sacrifice his life and soul, he would make Lu Yuan pay the price for destroying the Holy Spirit Church and killing Cho Muyi. If he didn't get his revenge, there would be no meaning for him to live in this world. You've made a wise choice. Don't worry, this king will definitely help you tear that brat into pieces. Seeing that the Soul Demon Feather had finally agreed, the Black Shadow laughed, his scarlet eyes full of joy. The method is very simple. You only need to set up a sacrificial array, then transfer the blood into the array. Finally, you just need to burn your own life and soul to summon this king back. This is the sacrificial array. The Black Shadow casually pointed, and a black stream of light directly sank into the Soul Demon Feather's mind. I understand. The Soul Demon Feather nodded. His figure floated above the blood lake, and a series of black light patterns appeared out of thin air in midair. Under the Soul Demon Feather's carving, The light patterns quickly combined and turned into a huge magic light array with a diameter of thousands of meters. Power of blood, sacrifice! The soul demon feather shouted, and the blood lake suddenly surged. Streams of blood flew out of thin air and were quickly swallowed up by the sacrificial array. As more and more blood poured in, the sacrificial array also became more and more powerful. About a quarter of an hour later, the entire blood lake was completely swallowed up by the sacrificial array. The originally black sacrificial array turned blood red and emitted extremely terrifying energy fluctuations. The soul demon feather looked at the surrounding heaven and earth with nostalgia, and then his figure floated up and landed on the sacrificial array. His body began to bloom with blood-red flames, and his life and soul were completely ignited at this moment. Ancient and venerated sacred God, I will use all of my life and soul to summon you. The soul demon feather's chanting resounded, and his entire body completely turned into a demonic blood-red flame. Suddenly, the sacrificial array seemed to be activated, and all the energy burst out, and a blood-red pillar of light shot into the sky. Somewhere in the Douluo continent, there was a dark valley without the slightest trace of light. At the bottom of the valley, two huge chains, one red and one purple, stretched out of nowhere and locked up a pitch-black figure with 12 black wings on his back. Suddenly, the pitch-black figure seemed to sense something and let out a cold and evil laugh. Suddenly, a huge blood-red pillar of light seemed to appear in the sky and shone directly on the pitch-black figure's body. The two huge chains, one red and one purple, started to slowly melt under this blood-red pillar of light. The power of sacrifice. Haha, I'm finally free. The black figure laughed heartily, and black fog rose from his body. Together with the blood-red pillar of light, he attacked the two chains at the same time. The two chains shone with light and tried their best to resist. However, as time passed, the light on the chains became dimmer and dimmer. Finally, at a certain moment, the chains completely broke. A huge black pillar of light suddenly emerged from the pitch-black figure's body, and the black figure's body flashed, and he was already in midair. In midair, the black figure's appearance was completely revealed. His appearance was that of a middle-aged man. His face was deathly pale, and his eyes were scarlet. There was a black angel brand on his forehead. It was different from the angel brand on Qian Rinchue's forehead. This black angel brand had a total of 12 wings, just like the 12 black wings on his back that were flapping. This black figure was a 12-winged fallen angel. The black figure opened his hands slightly, and dense darkness started to spread. In just a moment, half the sky was covered, and it continued to spread. People of the Douluo continent tremble. I, the fallen god king, Lucifer, have returned. Everyone in the world will crawl under my feet. Ha! The black figure roared into the sky, and a terrifying aura rushed into the clouds. Chapter 1162. Martial Spirit Palace, Lakeside Pavilion. Chihiro Snow's body suddenly shook. She quickly put down the teacup in her hand and placed her lily-white hand on her chest. She frowned slightly, her golden eyes suddenly focused, and a fierce, murderous aura swept out. Seeing Chihiro Snow like this, BB Dawn couldn't help but ask softly, "What's wrong?" "My heart is slightly throbbing. I keep feeling that a mortal enemy has appeared." Chihiro Snow frowned and said indifferently. Just now, her angelic bloodline had wildly fluctuated, and a strong sense of disgust had risen from the depths of her heart. This feeling was somewhat similar to the one she'd felt from the Holy Ghost Church's leader, Cho Mui, but it was much stronger. While she was disgusted, she also felt a sense of fear. She'd only felt this kind of fear from Gu Yuna and Lu Yuan when he'd revealed his strength. Her divine intuition told her that a storm was coming. Perhaps a huge trouble was about to come knocking on her door. Mortal enemy? BB Dawn murmured softly, a trace of fluctuation flashing through her beautiful pink eyes. Hasn't the Holy Ghost Church been dealt with by Obuchi? Where did this mortal enemy come from? BB Dawn said softly, a trace of confusion in her voice. I'm not sure, but my feeling can't be wrong. The throbbing just now gave me a strong sense of pressure. It's very likely that I won't be able to deal with this trouble. Chihiro Snow's watery golden eyes flickered slightly, but her voice was still calm. Even you can't deal with it? Bibidon's expression became serious. In the past 6 months, Chihiro Snow's strength had increased rapidly. After absorbing that half of the angel god crystal, she'd broken through from the peak of second tier to first tier. That's right, Chihiro Snow was now a true first-tier god. Chihiro Snow was definitely the first person in history to break through to first tier without experiencing the baptism of immortal chi. Her talent and strength were both excellent, and her future was bright. However, Chihiro Snow actually said that she didn't have the confidence to deal with this trouble. How could this not shock BB Dawn? Should we call Obuchi back? BB Dawn tapped her slender fingers on the table as she asked softly. Even Chihiro Snow couldn't solve the problem. Perhaps only Lu Yuan could solve in person. But it seems that we can't contact him even if we want to. BB Dawn's voice fell, and his voice changed, but he added another sentence. This time, Lu Yuan was heading to the Dragon Valley. He had told them before he left, but the problem was that they had no idea where the Dragon Valley was. We can't contact him, but there are people who can contact him and know where he is. Chihiro Snow's golden eyes flickered as he said softly. Who is it? BB Dawn hurriedly asked. Beast God Tion. Chihiro Snow's eyes shone brightly as he spoke. Beast God Tion. How do you know that Tion knows where the Dragon Valley is? BB Dawn was a little confused as he asked. That's because the Dragon Valley is the territory of the dragons. Tion is a dragon, and Gu Yuna is a dragon. Doesn't Obuchi also have the bloodline of the dragons? Gu Yuna was the one who brought Obuchi to the Dragon Valley. If I'm not wrong, Tion should be Gu Yuna's subordinate, and Gu Yuna should be the leader of the dragons. Obuchi once said that Gu Yuna was a god who protected the great Star Do forest. However, it seems like Obuchi was right, but he changed the concept. Gu Yuna isn't a god, but a god of soul beasts. She doesn't have the bloodline of the dragons, but she is a dragon herself. She is a soul beast. Chihiro Snow narrowed his eyes as he spoke. Gu Yuna is a soul beast? A look of astonishment flashed across Bibidon's eyes. However, she was also an extremely intelligent woman. After pondering for a moment, she could vaguely sense that something wasn't right. It seems like you have your guesses. Obuchi has always been very mysterious. It's just that we didn't investigate too deeply. For example, his 5th soul ring, where he went during the year that he disappeared, and so on. We believed him when he said it, and we never investigated him. However, there are still many loopholes in his story. Chihiro Snow spoke softly. That's because you believed him. I never believed him. I could tell that he was lying, but I didn't want to force him to tell me. I knew that he must have his reasons. However, I didn't think that this was his reason. He actually fell in love with a soul beast. BB Dawn shook her head. She felt that it was a little unbelievable. When did you discover that Gu Yuna was a soul beast? BB Dawn asked. I'll have to start from the trip to the extreme north. I'm not afraid that you'll laugh at me, but I didn't have a good time in the extreme north because Obuchi personally told me that he was going to give you the main palace. I was really shocked at that time. You also know that once a person's spirit is shocked, especially when it happens to me, they like to worry about personal gains and losses. Therefore, I paid special attention to every word that Obuchi said. I still remember that Obuchi said that he had a soul beast bloodline. It wasn't as simple as a normal person with a dragon bloodline. Instead, he had a soul beast bloodline of a direct type. This meant that his soul beast bloodline was directly inherited from the previous generation. Therefore, the question is, even if Obuchi really did have a soul beast bloodline, how did he know? Obuchi was adopted by the fellow's father when he was young, so he didn't know the origin of his bloodline. He had been in the Martial Soul Palace since he was 6 years old, so he had no chance to know. The only chance he had was when he left the Heaven Do imperial family and went on his own. He went missing for a year, and I only found out later that he was in the Great Star Doe Forest for that year. The Great Star Doe Forest is a place where soul beasts live, so it goes without saying who told him. I think that the person who told him was most likely Gu Yuna. Not long after that, news of him and Gu Yuna spread. That time in the misty forest, Gu Yuna saved him, and we knew that he and Gu Yuna were together. The reason that Obuchi gave me at the time was that their bloodlines attracted each other. He had a golden dragon bloodline, while Gu Yuna had a silver dragon bloodline. The two of them were a match made in heaven, and were destined to be together. Seeing as Obuchi has a soul beast bloodline, does that mean that Gu Yuna also has a soul beast bloodline? Obuchi went missing for another year in the dense fog forest, and we found out that he was in the Great Star Doe Forest with Gu Yuna during that year. Gu Yuna is a god from the Great Star Doe Forest, and she also has a soul beast bloodline. So, could she be a human? That's impossible. She could only be a soul beast, or she could be a silver dragon. As for her identity as the master of the dragon clan, that's even easier to guess. Golden dragons and silver dragons are two of the most powerful branches of the dragon clan, and Gu Yuna has both power and a powerful bloodline. If she's not the master of the dragon clan, who else could she be? Also, you know that Obuchi gave me and Hulina 100,000-year-old soul beasts, right? Chihiro Snow asked. I know. He also gave me a 100,000-year-old bloodwing golden mosquito and a 1,000-year-old Neptunia. Bibi Dawn nodded with a blissful smile on her face. Lu Yuan was extremely good to her. Let's not talk about you for now. Obuchi brought them back from the Massacre City and Sea God's Island. We know their origins, so let's talk about me and Hulina first. Little Yuan gave me a 100,000-year radiant unicorn and Hulaina a 100,000-year eight-tailed illusion fox. Both of them are very compatible with me and Hulaina. It's already very difficult to find a 100,000-year soul beast, let alone a 100,000-year one. This is more than 100 times more difficult. Also, those were 100,000-year-old soul beasts. They were sacrificed without any hesitation. Obuchi even told me to revive them after I became a god. I really want to know where Obuchi got them and why they listened to Obuchi so much. Even if Obuchi has the Golden Dragon's bloodline, he's still a human. Would 100,000-year-old soul beasts listen to him so wholeheartedly? Also, is it so easy to find 100,000-year-old soul beasts just like that? But if it was Gu Yuna who gave the order, then it couldn't be more normal. With her status, it'll be easy for her to find two such soul beasts among the many soul beasts and make them willing to sacrifice themselves. Chihiro Snow spoke softly with a wise light in his eyes. Lu Yuan had obtained those two soul beasts from the system, but he didn't expect Chihiro Snow to interpret them like this. But Chihiro Snow's words made some sense. At the very least, Bibi Dawn nodded in agreement. Chihiro Snow smiled faintly and continued, all of the above are reasonable speculations, and the most direct evidence is that after I became a god, I discovered a wisp of unusual aura on Gu Yuna's body. When I focused my gaze on it, I discovered that there was a mystical power concealing something from her body, which further confirmed my guess that Gu Yuna is definitely not a human. Although she's also a god, she's very different from an orthodox god like me. She's a soul beast god, and according to the angelic inheritance I received, soul beast gods are targets that the divine realm must kill. At this point, Chihiro Snow sighed and said, Obuchi really is a troublemaker. Falling in love with such an existence, I'm afraid that many things will happen in the future. It's indeed a bit troublesome. So what do you plan to do? Bibi Dawn asked. What else can I do? Obuchi is my man, so I can only support him. What can I do to support the divine realm in killing Gu Yuna? If I do that, Obuchi will definitely hate me for the rest of my life, and I suspect that he already knows that I know Gu Yuna's identity. Back then, perhaps he intentionally said those words. He didn't want to hide it anymore, so he inadvertently left some clues to lead us to the truth, or perhaps he also had the intention of probing. I didn't do anything, so he was relieved and simply went into seclusion. You don't know, but before this guy left, he accompanied me alone for a week. In fact, he might have been observing me for the last time. This man's thoughts are too deep, Chihiro Snow said with a wry smile. BB Dawn fell silent. According to her understanding of Lu Yuan, this kind of thing was something that Lu Yuan was capable of. This bastard, he hasn't done a single thing. BB Dawn lightly scolded, somewhat annoyed. Of course, she wasn't annoyed that Lu Yuan fell in love with Guyuna, but that Lu Yuan revealed the clues to Chihiro Snow, and not to her. Could she be more stupid than Chihiro Snow? That's why sometimes women's focus is really different from men's. Because Lu Yuan didn't think so much at that time, he simply didn't want to hide it. As for accompanying Chihiro Snow, it was because Chihiro Snow had a conflict with Guyuna in the fog forest, and he was simply a little worried. This was the helplessness of having multiple wives. He had to take care of everyone's thoughts to avoid possible chaos. Okay, you don't have to be jealous. He didn't observe you because he didn't worry about you, and he also didn't worry about other people. I'm the only one who quarreled with him, and I have some disagreements with Guyuna, so it's inevitable that he has some scruples in his heart. I can understand, Chihiro Snow said in a low voice. Hearing this, BB Dawn was slightly surprised. Chihiro Snow seemed to have changed a lot. Cher, you've really matured a lot. In the past, you wouldn't say such things. BB Dawn said softly. Chihiro Snow shook his head and said, people will always grow after experiencing setbacks. Obuchi said that I was too arrogant, so he removed my main wife. I also carefully thought about it, and I feel that what he said is somewhat reasonable. Compared to you, I do have a lot of shortcomings. Moreover, Obuchi's love for me has been tested and tempered many times. It's already very rare that we can be so loving together now. I don't want to be at odds with Obuchi anymore, so I will learn to understand him. Chihiro Snow said with a smile. Well said, you've indeed grown a lot. If you were like this from the beginning, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to snatch your main wife away from you in my lifetime. You don't know how many times I've pestered Obuchi for the position of main wife. I've used all kinds of tricks, but this guy still struggled for so long. BB Dawn smiled gently, and his words were full of sincerity. Chihiro Snow smiled faintly. She didn't care about being the main wife anymore. She had already found a better position. Furthermore, as long as Lu Yuan still loved her the most, it didn't matter whether she was the main wife or not. Next, I'll have to trouble you to make a trip to the Great Stardow Forest. I'll stay behind to guard. I have a feeling that this crisis will come soon. Chihiro Snow said to BB Dawn. Then be careful. If you can't beat them, run. It's fine even if the Holy Emperor Palace is destroyed. You should know what Obuchi values the most. BB Dawn reminded her. Don't worry, I know. If things don't work out, I'll retreat. Chihiro Snow said with a smile. Okay, then I'll go. BB Dawn nodded. He gently waved his hand, and a spatial crack appeared. She directly disappeared into it. Lu Yuan had taught her how to use the power of space. Although she couldn't directly teleport across the continent like Guyuna and Lu Yuan, she could still travel hundreds of miles every time she teleported. It was much faster than flying. Watching Bibidon's figure disappear, Chihiro Snow picked up the teacup again and took a sip. Her eyes were a little absent-minded. I'm really not used to not having you around. I'm actually a little scared to face a crisis alone. Chihiro Snow murmured softly. Lu Yuan's imposing figure appeared in her mind. No matter what difficulties she faced in the past, Lu Yuan would always stand in front of her. But this time, she had to guard the martial spirit palace alone. Don't worry, Obuchi. I won't let you down. I'll hold on until you come back. Chihiro Snow clenched her fists. Her eyebrows were filled with determination. Chapter 1163. The Dragon Valley Miniature World. Lu Yuan remained seated in the dragon's tomb as he radiated with a resplendent white light. The endless white light enveloped him completely. His eyes were tightly shut. Clearly, he had sunk into the deepest level of meditation. Guyuna sat on a rock as she stared at Lu Yuan with her purple eyes. There was some joy in her eyes. It's like he's there, but it's also like he's not there. His body has merged with the world. Obuchi's presence is becoming more and more ethereal. If I wasn't looking at him, I wouldn't have noticed his existence at all. In my senses, Obuchi is nothing, Guyuna sighed. Guyuna sighed softly. Her eyes were filled with amazement. She was a godly king expert, and it was no exaggeration to say that her mental strength was the best in the world. Even the 5 godly kings of the divine world were far inferior to her in terms of mental strength. However, even with her mental strength, she was unable to detect Lu Yuan's existence at all, even though Lu Yuan was sitting nearby. Lu Yuan seemed to have completely merged with the world. He was the sky. He was the earth. It was as if he didn't exist, yet he was everywhere. What a strange feeling. However, does this mean that Obuchi isn't far from becoming a god? Gu Yina murmured softly. Lu Yuan had already comprehended her power of creation a long time ago. Right now, he was comprehending the most mysterious power of destiny. The power of destiny was of an extremely high level. It was only below Lu Yuan's power of loss. After all, in the publicly acknowledged legends, there were 3,000 great ways. Strength was the general principle. Destiny was not involved. Karma was first, time was supreme, and space was king. Without a doubt, the great way of strength was the most powerful. This was because everything that could increase one's strength and cause destruction belonged to the great way of strength. The great way of strength was never a simple power. Instead, it encompassed almost all powers, including the power of space, time, karma, and so on. This was why the great god Pangu was so powerful in the legends, able to kill 3,000 people by himself. This was because he grasped the great way of strength. Besides the grand Tao of strength, the grand Tao of destiny, karma, time, space, and the other grand Taos of time were the most mysterious amongst them. Lu Yuan's power of rules actually represented the origin of all things. It was the rules of the universe's operation. It was not a simple Tao, but a fusion of various laws. It was similar to the great Tao, including the law of force. Thus, the power of rules was extremely mysterious and could create many impossible miracles. Moreover, it was also very difficult to directly comprehend. Thus, Lu Yuan borrowed the power of the source of all things to reverse engineer the power of rules. Now that he was about to finish comprehending it, he was only left with the power of destiny. However, the power of fate wasn't something that could be easily pried into, so Lu Yuan was completely immersed in it now. Although he was only one step away from becoming a god, no one could say for sure when he would be able to take this step. It might take a few years, or it might happen immediately. The key was still Lu Yuan's own comprehension. Sigh, I hope Obuchi can quickly comprehend it, Guyan sighed. She hadn't spoken to Lu Yuan for a few months, and she missed him very much. Furthermore, ever since Lu Yuan had immersed himself in comprehending the power of fate, they hadn't spoken again. However, Guyana seemed to have thought of something. She placed a hand on her stomach, and a gentle smile appeared on her face. Reality proved that after walking by the river for a long time, one's shoes would definitely get wet. However, this wet shoe was very delightful. I wonder how Obuchi will react when he finds out. Guyuna's lips curled up into a beautiful smile. As soon as she said that, Guyuna's expression suddenly changed. She could sense a faint resistance from the small world. Someone's coming. Guyuna's expression changed slightly. Who had come to the Dragon Valley at this time? Was it Di Tian and the others? Guessing in her heart, Guyuna glanced at Lu Yuan. Her figure flashed and turned into a silver light, flying toward the turbulence. No matter what happened, she could not let them disturb Lu Yuan, who was at the most critical moment. Guyuna's speed was extremely fast. In just a short while, she had already arrived at the source of the disturbance. After tearing open the barrier of the small world, Guyuna saw Di Tian. Di Tian, didn't I tell you not to disturb me, if there's nothing important? What are you doing in the Dragon Valley? Do you know that Obuchi is at a critical juncture right now? If you disturb him, you'll die 10 times over. Guyuna's face stiffened as she stared at Di Tian with her purple eyes. A terrifying pressure radiated from her. How could Di Tian resist the pressure of a god king's gaze? Di Tian's legs immediately gave out, and he knelt onto the ground. I understand. I have something important to report. Please calm down, master. Di Tian lowered his head and said softly. What is it? Speak. If it's not important, you should know what will happen to you. Guyuna's tone was cold. She was really angry. Not only had Di Tian disobeyed her orders, but he had also almost startled Lu Yuan. It should be known that once this kind of deep comprehension was interrupted, it would be very difficult to enter that mysterious state again. This would directly affect Lu Yuan's path to becoming a god. So how could Guyuna not be angry? I've received news that the Martial Spirit Palace is going to be in great danger. Master, you know how important the Martial Spirit Palace is to the Honorable One. I wouldn't dare to not report such news. Di Tian hurriedly said. He naturally knew that disturbing Guyuna would cause her displeasure. However, since Bibi Don had personally sent the message, how could he dare to not come? If he didn't come, and something really happened to Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan would definitely be furious. Not only would he be killed by Lu Yuan in a fit of rage, but even the Soul Beast clan and Guyuna would be affected by Lu Yuan's anger. Di Tian had some understanding of Lu Yuan's character. He was truly unscrupulous. If he was angry, the terror would be unimaginable. Great danger? Chihiro Snow has already become a god. What great danger would there be? Could it be that the two women want to see Obuchi and are deliberately playing tricks? Guyuna muttered softly. This subordinate doesn't think so. This letter was personally sent by the Empress of the Martial Soul Empire, Bibi Dong. Furthermore, my lord, there is something this subordinate wants to tell you. They already know your true identity and your relationship with us. Di Tian said respectfully. What? Guyuna was slightly shocked. Bibi Don and the others knew her true identity? What do they think of me? Guyuna asked. I can't tell. However, that Bibidon's attitude is quite good. She also looks very anxious. She doesn't seem to be lying. Di Tian thought for a moment and said softly. Chapter 1164. Oh, Guyuna paused for a moment, and her purple eyes flickered. I didn't expect them to have such a strong reaction after finding out my identity. Guyuna stroked her chin, and there was a hint of surprise in her eyes. Humans and soul beasts weren't mortal enemies, but they definitely didn't like each other. In the eyes of humans, soul beasts were heretics. She thought that Chihiro Snow, Bibi Don, and the others would be very opposed to her after her identity was exposed. She didn't expect them to be so nice about it, and that was a little surprising. But how did they find out about my identity? Did Obuchi tell them? Guyuna muttered to herself as she speculated in her heart. She was also a woman with many thoughts. In the beginning, she often schemed against Lu Yuan, but Lu Yuan didn't like women who played tricks with him, so Guyuna had always restrained herself. However, she couldn't help but be tempted again after encountering this situation. Di Tian, did Bibi Don say what kind of danger it was? Guyuna asked softly. No, but she said that Chihiro Snow sensed that danger was coming, and they couldn't resist it. That's why she came to find me and told me to inform Supreme One. This matter is very important. I didn't dare to delay it, so I hurried over. Di Tian told her everything in detail. Is that so? That means Chihiro Snow was the one who told her about this. Guyuna muttered to herself as she pondered quietly. To be honest, she was doubtful about the authenticity of this matter. That was because she didn't think that there would be any danger. The continent had been swept clean by Lu Yuan, and it was very peaceful. There was no danger that would come just because he said so. Therefore, it was very likely that this matter was fabricated by Chihiro Snow. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. If danger really came, and she didn't do anything because she didn't believe it, and something happened to Qian Renshua, then her relationship with Lu Yuan would definitely be broken. Even the hope of the soul beast would be completely destroyed. She had been in love with Lu Yuan for many years, and she understood Lu Yuan's personality too well. Lu Yuan was usually harmless, and he seemed to have a good personality. He also doted on them a lot, but that was only when they didn't touch his reverse scale. Lu Yuan didn't care about power or money. He only cared about the people around him. In other words, they were Lu Yuan's reverse scale, and Chihiro Snow was undoubtedly the reverse scale of all reverse scales. If anyone dared to hurt her, Lu Yuan would definitely explode. Gu Yuna had never seen Lu Yuan go berserk, but she knew that it was extremely terrifying, and the price was not something that she could bear. Putting aside whether or not Lu Yuan would attack her, he would definitely hate her for the rest of his life. Furthermore, Lu Yuan would definitely kick the soul beast race to the side without hesitation to take revenge on her. Lu Yuan would definitely do such a thing. Thinking of the consequences, Gu Yuna's heart trembled. Therefore, no matter whether this crisis was real or not, she had to treat it as real. However, even though she said that, she had to consider it carefully. If the crisis wasn't real, then what was Qian Rinxue trying to do by going through so much trouble? Was it really as simple as asking Obuchi to go back? Or was there an ulterior motive? On the surface, it was asking Obuchi to go back, but in fact it was targeting her? This wasn't impossible. After all, her identity had been exposed. She didn't believe that Chihiro Snow and Bibidon really didn't have any thoughts. When she first found out about Qian Rinxue's identity, she wanted to kill her. Judging others by their own standards, she felt that Qian Rinxue and Qian Rinxue would not accept her so easily. Could it be that they want to harm me? Gu Yuna secretly thought, but immediately denied her own thoughts. No, it's just as I thought. If something happened to Chihiro Snow, Obuchi would explode. If something happened to me, Obuchi would also explode. They wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Gu Yuna murmured softly. She believed in the relationship between Lu Yuan and her. She could feel that Lu Yuan loved her very much. Even if Chihiro Snow and Bibidon knew her identity, they wouldn't dare to harm her. They also didn't dare to bear Lu Yuan's wrath. Forget it. No matter what tricks they're playing, someone has to go. Obuchi can't leave now, so I can only go. Gu Yuna said softly, and there was a hint of determination in her purple eyes. My lord, you want to go in person? I feel that it's a bit inappropriate. Hearing Gu Yuna's soft voice, Dition couldn't help but ask, what's inappropriate? Gu Yuna asked indifferently. If the crisis is fake, as you said, and they have some strange plans, then it's fine. At most, it's just a small dispute because they wouldn't dare to harm you. But if the crisis is real and Chihiro Snow can't defeat them, you will definitely have to take action. When that time comes, once your strength is exposed, the God Realm will definitely discover your whereabouts. How dangerous is that? My lord, you should go and wake the lord up. It's more appropriate for my lord to go. Dition said with a serious expression. No, we definitely can't wake Obuchi up. This is the most crucial step for him to become a god. We definitely can't disturb him. He is the hope of our soul beast clan. Only when he becomes a god can we truly rise up. Do you understand? Therefore, to us, there's nothing more important than Obuchi becoming a god. Even if something happens to me, we can't wake Obuchi up. Furthermore, I'm much stronger than before. The God Realm won't be able to catch me for a while. Furthermore, even if they can't defeat me, I can still escape. No one understands space better than I do. They won't be able to catch up to me. I can easily drag things out until Obuchi comes out of his closed-door cultivation. When that happens, it'll be their time of death. Therefore, don't worry, I'll be fine. Gu Yuna waved her hand and said nonchalantly, if it were before, she would still have to hide. It wasn't for her, but for Lu Yuan. She wanted to give him enough time to grow. But now, Lu Yuan was about to become a god. She felt that it wouldn't be a big deal even if she was exposed. She no longer feared the God Realm. Then I'll go back and reorganize the team in the Great Stardow Forest. We'll be ready to support you at any time. Dition's heart skipped a beat when he heard Gu Yuna's words. He knew that Gu Yuna had already made up her mind, and he couldn't change her mind. Therefore, he immediately took a step back and made other plans. They weren't very powerful, but they could at least block the sword for Gu Yuna so that she could escape more easily. All right, I'll leave it to you. Gu Yuna hesitated for a moment, but still chose to agree. Dition and the others wouldn't be of much help in a battle like this. However, they had good intentions, and she didn't want to dampen their enthusiasm. Furthermore, the rise of the Soul Beast was a matter that concerned the entire Soul Beast race. They had an obligation to participate, even if they might die if they did. However, this was their choice. Even though she was the master of the Soul Beasts, she couldn't interfere in this matter. "Thank you, Master. I'll go back and make the arrangements right away." Tion bowed again before standing up. A loud dragon's roar rang out, and he transformed into a massive black dragon that tore through space and swept away. Gu Yuna's expression changed slightly, and her eyes flickered. Moments later, she sighed softly and walked into the Dragon Valley. In the dragon's tomb, Gu Yuna looked at Lu Yuan, who was still immersed in his meditation. Her eyes were filled with love and tenderness. "Obu Chi, I didn't think that things would come to this. My identity has been exposed in the end. Do you think that Chihiro Snow is targeting me? Or is there really a crisis? You're always so active, but when I really need you, you can't leave. Do you know that? I really need you to accompany me right now. Oh, right. I really want to ask you something. If they were to fight with me, who would you side with? You've always been biased toward them in the past. If you still dare to be biased this time, I definitely won't forgive you. I can't beat you, but I can bully your son." Humph. Gu Yuna stroked her belly as a hint of affection flashed through her eyes, and she couldn't help but let out a soft moan. "Of course, if some kind of enemy really does descend upon us, I'll take care of them for you. I know you love them dearly, so I'll ensure their safety. However, you have to remember that I've protected your women, so you have to compensate me after you wake up. All right? I don't want anything else. Just stay with me. You have to stay with me for at least a month. No, at least 3 months. I definitely won't let you go until 3 months have passed." A sweet smile appeared on Gu Yuna's face as she clenched her little fists. "Also, if I make a move, the divine realm will definitely sense it. At that time, the gods will descend to the divine realm to capture me. If you don't come in time, 2 lives will be lost. I'll see if you regret it at that time. So, you have to quickly finish comprehending it, then fight your way to the divine realm and kill all the gods." Gu Yuna giggled as she looked at Lu Yuan with a gentle expression. "Then I'm going now." Gu Yuna took another longing glance at Lu Yuan before quickly disappearing into the small world as a streak of dazzling silver light. Meanwhile, the white light emanating from Lu Yuan's body became even more pronounced. It was flashing as if it were responding to something. In the Martial Spirit Palace, Chihiro Snow was standing in midair in a set of dazzling divine armor. The 5 pairs of snowy white wings on his back were gently flapping, and rich light power was converging around them. Chihiro Snow wore a serious expression as he stared intently at the distant sky with his golden eyes. Her predictions had come true. Danger had indeed arrived, and it had arrived extremely quickly. Boundless darkness had obscured the entire sky, and only a small patch of light remained above her head. The darkness was boundless, and she couldn't see the end of it. The entire Martial Soul City, and even the entire Martial Soul Empire, was shaken because this darkness had engulfed the entire Douluo continent. From the outside of the Douluo star, one could see that the entire Douluo continent had been completely engulfed by darkness. Heaven and earth were dark, and one could barely make out the figures of people. Suddenly, an extremely powerful aura surged over, and Chihiro Snow's heart trembled slightly. He shifted his gaze, and a black figure slowly surfaced in his golden eyes. The black figure had the appearance of a middle-aged man, and he emitted a depraved and evil aura. 12 pitch-black wings were gently flapping on his back. 12-winged king of fallen angels. Chihiro Snow exclaimed involuntarily, and there was a strong sense of fear in his eyes. In the Angel Clan, the number of wings represented their strength. Every additional pair of wings represented a qualitative leap. Even though there was only a single pair of wings between her and the black figure, the difference between them was like heaven and earth. She was only a first-tier god, while the black figure's strength should be that of a god king, a genuine god king. How can an existence like the 12-winged king of fallen angels appear? How can this be? Chihiro Snow's heart pounded violently. A God King expert, not to mention her. Even Lu Yuan might not be able to defeat him. According to Lu Yuan's strength before he went into seclusion, perhaps he could only be comparable to a God King if he used the God-slaying spear. She couldn't deal with such an opponent at all. Fortunately, I asked BB Don to inform Tion to call Obuchi. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't have had a good time today. I just don't know when Obuchi will be able to make it in time. Chihiro Snow muttered softly and couldn't help but grip the angelic holy sword in her hand tightly. If Lu Yuan didn't arrive in time, she would probably die here today, in front of a 12-winged fallen angel, who is also adept at flying. She wouldn't even have the chance to escape if she was defeated. However, Chihiro Snow didn't have the slightest intention of backing down. She could lose, she could die, but she would never admit defeat, and she would never run away without a fight. Whether it was for the dignity of the angel bloodline or her identity as the Saint Emperor's woman, she had to step forward bravely and protect the Saint Emperor's palace. Moreover, her innate pride wouldn't allow her to run away. Only Obuchi can make me admit defeat. No one else can. Chihiro Snow said softly, and an awe-inspiring aura exploded from her body. Resplendent light shone in all directions. With the help of the sun's energy, Chihiro Snow actually drove away the darkness above the martial spirit city completely. Oh, interesting. Not bad. I didn't expect such an angel to exist. Lucifer raised his eyebrows slightly, and there was a hint of surprise in his tone. It seemed like he was surprised that a 12-winged angel still existed. I remember that ever since I killed that guy, the angel clan has declined. At most, there are only 6-winged angels left. But today, I actually saw a 12-winged angel. How rare. Lucifer said softly and looked curiously at Chihiro Snow. What's your name? The god of 12-winged angels, Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow said loudly, pointing her long sword horizontally. Chihiro Snow? That's a good name. Since you can cultivate to the level of a 12-winged angel, it seems that your talent isn't bad. I'll give you a chance. How about following me in the future? I promise that I won't treat you unfairly. Lucifer said indifferently. He was interested in Chihiro Snow. She was talented and beautiful. If he could take her in, it would be a wonderful thing. However, Chihiro Snow's reply made his face darken. Chapter 1165. You think you're worthy? Chihiro Snow's cold voice sounded. Her words were full of disdain. Looking at Lucifer's covetous eyes, Chihiro Snow's heart was full of disgust. She hated men looking at her with such eyes, except for Lu Yuan. Of course, Lu Yuan loved her and cherished her, so he would never show such eyes. His eyes would be hot and full of love, but they would never be lustful. In Chihiro Snow's view, she was the proud, pure, holy, and noble 10-winged angel god. In this world, except for Lu Yuan, no one was worthy of her. Who was this Lucifer? So what if he was the divine king? She could guarantee that Lu Yuan was definitely stronger than him. Even if it was her, she still had the chance to become the divine king in the future. However, thinking of Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow couldn't help but feel a little resentful. This guy wasn't even there when his wife was being bullied. He was really too much. You promised to protect me for a lifetime, but you actually let me face such a strong enemy alone. Humph. Chihiro Snow snorted. Her heart was secretly worried. Of course, she knew that Lu Yuan couldn't be blamed for Lucifer's attack, but women always hoped that their men would be by their side when they were in danger, to shelter them from the wind and rain. Chihiro Snow was naturally no exception. She and Lu Yuan had a tacit understanding, as she was already used to Lu Yuan's protection and help. Suddenly facing such a strong enemy, she felt very insecure. Only when Lu Yuan was by her side, she felt at ease from the bottom of her heart. Chihiro Snow secretly thought, but Lucifer's face had completely darkened. He hated being rejected the most, not to mention Chihiro Snow actually said that he wasn't worthy. How could he not be angry? I'm not worthy. I'll let you see if I'm worthy or not later. Lucifer's scarlet eyes were filled with a strong desire to possess. Originally, he was only a little interested, but now he was determined to have this woman. Since she wasn't willing, then he could only force himself. Ten-winged angel god, I'll show you how powerful I am. I'll make you kneel at my feet willingly and become my woman. A red light flashed across Lucifer's eyes, and a thick black fog rose from his body. It turned into a ferocious black dragon that was thousands of feet long. With a terrifying aura that could devour everything, it pounced towards Qianrenqiu. In your dreams, Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes were filled with killing intent as the angelic holy sword in her hand shone brightly. Angelic blade slash. Chihiro Snow gripped his angelic blade and slashed down. The energy sword, which was thousands of meters long, cut through the dark sky and struck the flood dragon with the power of light and darkness. Immediately, a loud explosion sounded out. The sword and the dragon attacked each other in the air, and then both of them turned into nothingness. Due to the force of the energy, Qianrenqiu was pushed back over 100 meters before she could stabilize herself. So powerful, Chihiro Snow's hands trembled slightly. This was the first time she had fought a god king, but she felt a strong sense of powerlessness. Lucifer had merely condensed his aura on his own. He hadn't even made a move, yet he had already broken through her angel's light blade slash with all her strength and sent her flying back more than 100 meters. Was the difference in strength really that great? Chihiro Snow's heart gradually became gloomy. She suspected that she wouldn't be able to last until Lu Yuan came to her rescue. Chihiro Snow gripped her angelic holy sword tightly, and a determined look appeared in her eyes. Even if she couldn't defeat Lucifer, she was going to do her best to stall him. Even if she died, she wanted to see Lu Yuan one last time before she died. With that in mind, Chihiro Snow's aura surged. The angelic holy sword glowed with holy light, and she viciously slashed toward the darkness and evil. Outside the Dragon Valley realm, a spatial rift suddenly tore open in the sky, and a silver figure stepped out from within. Gu Yina looked in the direction of the Douluo continent, and her beautiful purple eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. What dense darkness! This power belongs to a god king. Looks like something really has happened to Chihiro Snow. But why hasn't the divine realm reacted to the appearance of such a powerful being on the Douluo continent? Gu Yina looked up into the sky as she murmured to herself. It would be best if the divine realm intervened to resolve the crisis that Chihiro Snow was in. In reality, she didn't want to do anything if she could avoid doing so, as she would expose her identity. She wasn't afraid of that, but it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Wouldn't it be better to just wait for Lu Yuan to emerge from seclusion? However, if the divine realm's reaction was delayed, then she had to save Chihiro Snow at the most appropriate time. In that case, she had to intervene. Otherwise, Lu Yuan would definitely blame her. So be it. Let's go take a look at the situation first. Gu Yina murmured softly. She waved her hand, and a spatial rift appeared again. Gu Yina directly entered it. Outside, the martial spirit palace. Accompanied by a resounding sound of collision, Qianrenqiu's figure flew out, and golden blood continuously flowed out from the corner of her mouth. One strike, just one strike, and Lucifer had not only broken her all-out angel's judgment, but also severely injured her. Her angel's domain and inherited divine skills were almost completely ineffective against Lucifer, and they were easily neutralized. His terrifying strength made her tremble slightly. Was this the difference between a first-tier god and a god king? It was like the difference between heaven and earth. She had used all her strength, but she couldn't even hurt a single hair on Lucifer's body. No wonder Lu Yuan always said that a first-tier god couldn't defeat a god king when they were together, even if they had a super divinity tool. He was just bragging when he said that he wouldn't lose to a god king. She didn't think much of it at the time, but now she finally understood that Lu Yuan was right. Compared to a god king, a first-tier god was really too weak. The two weren't even in the same dimension. If the difference between a limit Douluo and a god was the difference between an immortal and a mortal, then the difference between a first-tier god and a god-king was the difference between heaven and earth. Damn it! How can he be so strong? Chihiro Snow wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his face was filled with reluctance. Obuchi, I can't hold on for much longer. If you don't come, I'm afraid. A trace of sorrow flashed through Chihiro Snow's eyes. Lucifer coveted her beauty, and if things really went south, she would definitely self-detonate to protect her chastity. But if she did that, she would never see Lu Yuan again. She wasn't afraid of death, but she was a little reluctant. She hadn't enjoyed life with Lu Yuan, and they hadn't nurtured the fruit of their love. She really couldn't accept dying like this. Chapter 1166. Even if she was going to die, she had to at least leave behind a descendant for Lu Yuan and leave behind a legacy for the angel bloodline. Even if she didn't say all that, she still wanted to see Lu Yuan one last time before she died. If she couldn't even see him for the last time, she wouldn't be able to die in peace. Chihiro Snow's injuries were completely healed as she channeled the Esper secret character. However, her eyes were still extremely grave, and there was a hint of sadness and indignation hidden within them. Ten-winged angel god, how are things now? You're too weak, and you're no match for me. I'll give you one more chance. As long as you're willing to become my woman, I'll not only spare your life, but I'll also help you improve and become even more powerful. How about it? Do you want to enter my embrace? If you're trying to stall for time so that the people from the God realm can come and save you, then you've made a mistake. Not long ago, I used the light of sacrifice and my power of corruption to unleash the heavenly darkness seal and forcefully sealed the entire Douluo continent. Apart from native powerhouses, outsiders have to break through my heavenly darkness seal if they want to descend. Even if the 5 godly kings of the God realm were to act, they'd need half a day to break through the heavenly darkness seal. Do you think you can stall for half a day? Lucifer smiled faintly as he looked at Chihiro Snow. Hee. After hearing Lucifer's words, Chihiro Snow laughed coldly, and there was an arrogant and disdainful look on her face. You want me to be your woman? You're still far from being my woman. Even if I die, I won't let you off so easily. Furthermore, when did I say that I was waiting for the people from the God realm? Lucifer's words indeed shocked Chihiro Snow. She didn't expect Lucifer to unleash something like the heavenly darkness seal to prevent the God realm from descending. However, she didn't care too much about it because she didn't expect the God realm to rescue her from the very beginning. The only person she had been waiting for was Lu Yuan. She believed that as long as Lu Yuan arrived, the crisis would be resolved. No matter how strong Lu Yuan was, he would not be a match for Lu Yuan. Her only concern was that she was too weak. She might not be able to hold on until Lu Yuan arrived. I'm still far from it. Lucifer's scarlet eyes flashed with a trace of anger. Chihiro Snow's belittling caused a burst of anger to rise in his heart. However, his patience was not bad. Besides, he also wanted to know who Chihiro Snow's reinforcements were. Lucifer forcefully suppressed his anger and sneered. You said that you weren't waiting for the people from the God realm. Then I want to know who else on the Douluo continent can save you. It's not that I'm arrogant, but the so-called powerful people on the Douluo continent are nothing but ants in my eyes. Lucifer was very confident. He was a genuine godly king. Apart from the 5 godly kings of the God realm, no one else was qualified to enter his eyes. Therefore, he wanted to laugh at Chihiro Snow's words. She wanted to find someone on the Douluo continent who was comparable to him? That was a joke. Chihiro Snow glanced at Lucifer and said, You don't know because you're ignorant. When he arrives, it'll be the day of your death. The day of my death? Ha ha, even the 5 godly kings of the God realm can't kill me. What's the Douluo continent to me? Ten-winged angel god, your words are too funny. Lucifer burst into laughter after hearing Chihiro Snow's words. Where did this woman get her confidence from? She actually thought that there was someone who could kill him. She really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Whether he can kill you or not, will know when he arrives. Do you dare to continue waiting with me? Qianrenxue said calmly as she tried to goad him. She couldn't hold on for long, so she could only change her plan. She wanted to use Lucifer's arrogance to buy more time. Of course I dare to. However, I'm not stupid. Your provocation won't work on me. After I take you down, I can continue waiting for that so-called reinforcements. You can just be my woman. Lucifer said in an indifferent voice. He reached out and grabbed toward Chihiro Snow. Damn it! Chihiro Snow cursed in her heart. She didn't expect Lucifer to not only be unaffected by her provocation, but also make a move. Sun Angel. Chihiro Snow's eyes flashed with a trace of determination. She directly used the angel god's all-out skill. Suddenly, the angel god armor was shattered and turned into a scorching flame. The flames swirled and condensed into the image of a huge angel. Qianrenxue crazily mobilized the power in her body and poured it into the image of the angel. The terrifying power burned the surrounding space and made it illusory. That huge angel waved the angelic holy sword and slashed at Lucifer's huge hand. Everywhere it passed, the space shattered. The darkness was completely dispelled. The holy sword, which condensed light and fire, slashed at Lucifer's huge hand. Oh, this attack is a little interesting. Lucifer praised. Black energy crazily gathered in his hand. The holy sword was directly knocked away. Then, he flicked his finger. In an instant, the entire holy sword broke from the middle. Break! Lucifer slapped with his hand. The terrifying energy directly smashed the entire angel into pieces. The sun angel was broken. Chihiro Snow spat out a mouthful of golden blood. Her entire body's aura instantly weakened to the extreme. For a god, every drop of blood was precious. It was their own vitality. Chihiro Snow spat out blood. She had really suffered a great injury. In addition, almost all of her divine power had been condensed into this attack. The divine power in her body was thin. Even if she used the esoteric word, it wouldn't have much effect. After all, although the esoteric word was heaven-defying, it relied heavily on divine power. It required a lot of energy. Now, Chihiro Snow didn't have much divine power left. After the huge hand smashed the angel image, it continued to grab Chihiro Snow. Looking at the huge hand getting closer and closer, Chihiro Snow's eyes flashed with despair. The image of Lu Yuan flashed in her mind. Her face was full of love and reluctance. Obuchi, we still didn't have time to see each other for the last time. Chihiro Snow's tone was full of reluctance. Then, her golden eyes brightened. All of the despair and reluctance turned into determination. Goodbye, Obuchi, Chihiro Snow muttered. The shallow divine power left in her body became restless. Her entire body began to slowly expand. Just like she said, she was pure. She only belonged to Lu Yuan. She would never let others sully her body. Therefore, she resolutely chose to self-destruct. Chapter 1167. This crazy woman, she actually chose to self-detonate? Lucifer stared blankly, shocked by Chihiro Snow's decisiveness. He originally thought that Chihiro Snow's words were just empty words. He didn't expect her to actually mean it. Were all angels so chaste these days? This was a little strange. How could those hypocritical angels of light of the past leave behind such unyielding descendants? This was somewhat unexpected. Lucifer was surprised, but the giant hand didn't stop at all. Instead, it sped up. Although Chihiro Snow chose to self-detonate, he was confident that he could catch Chihiro Snow before Chihiro Snow completely exploded. He hadn't seen such an unyielding angel for a long time. Chihiro Snow's self-detonation aroused his interest even more. The giant hand was getting closer and closer, quickly approaching Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow's beautiful golden eyes flashed with a trace of panic, and the divine power in her body fluctuated more and more rapidly. Her body expanded more and more, but her speed was still one step slower. When she was still some time away from the explosion point, the giant hand was already in front of her eyes. No! Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes paused, and she couldn't help but cry out in alarm, deep sorrow in her eyes. Could it be that she couldn't even self-detonate? Could it be that she couldn't even protect her last bit of chastity? At this moment, Chihiro Snow's heart was full of despair and helplessness. Alas! Just when Chihiro Snow was feeling helpless and hopeless, a sigh faintly sounded, and the surrounding space suddenly stagnated. Even Lucifer's giant hand abruptly stopped in place. There seemed to be an incomparably powerful pressure in the space, suppressing both Lucifer's giant hand and Chihiro Snow's self-detonation. A silver figure suddenly appeared on the spot. She stretched out a finger, and the space shattered inch by inch. Even Lucifer's giant hand was shattered into nothingness. She slowly lifted her jade-white palm and gently patted Qian Renchua's body. Terrifying divine power flowed into Qian Renchua's body and completely suppressed the restless divine power in Qian Renchua's body. Immediately, Qian Renchua's swollen body calmed down, and she returned to her original state. After doing all this, the surrounding space seemed to have been unlocked, and everything returned to normal. Guyuna, is that you? Chihiro Snow looked at the silver figure in front of him with a complicated expression. Was it Guyuna who saved her? Of course it's me. Who else do you think it would be? Guyuna's beautiful purple eyes flashed slightly as she spoke in an indifferent voice. Where's Obuchi? Where'd he go? Chihiro Snow could not help but ask. It was naturally good that someone had saved her, and she was very grateful to Guyuna for saving her. However, in her heart, she hoped that the person who saved her was Lu Yuan. Obuchi still has something to do, so he asked me to come and take a look. Guyuna's eyes flashed slightly as she thought of something and said softly, Impossible. Chihiro Snow directly interrupted Guyuna's words. Obuchi is not that kind of person. No matter what he has to do, he will immediately abandon what he is doing and rush over after hearing my news. There is no way he would let someone else do it, even if that person is you. In his heart, there is nothing more important than my safety. You are lying. Obuchi definitely did not receive my message, did he? Chihiro Snow looked at Guyuna and asked in an indifferent voice. Although it was a question, his tone was full of certainty. Hee, you seem to be very confident. Guyuna smiled, and her smile was extremely beautiful. Of course I am confident because I love him, and he loves me. Our relationship has been tempered and witnessed through experience. Chihiro Snow said with a proud expression. Lu Yuan had many women, but she was definitely the most special one, as first love was always irreplaceable. Seeing the proud expression on Chihiro Snow's face, Guyuna's beautiful eyes rippled slightly, and she couldn't help but sigh softly in her heart. She was a little envious of the relationship between Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow. This kind of unreserved trust was really something to yearn for. However, thinking about the relationship between her and Lu Yuan, it seemed that the relationship between the two of them was not much different from the relationship between Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow. With this in mind, she felt a little comforted. A faint smile appeared on Guyuna's face as she said in a low voice, I just wanted to test you and see if you were worthy of Obuchi's love. In fact, I've been here for a long time, and I've been observing you this entire time. Your performance and words have convinced me that you are worthy of Obuchi's love. You're right. Obuchi indeed did not receive your message. He has already fallen into a deep level of meditation. This is an opportunity that can only be encountered by chance, so I did not disturb him. After receiving your message, I came here in person. Guyuna's voice was very calm, but the corners of Chihiro Snow's lips curled up slightly, and his face was filled with elation. I knew it would be like this, Chihiro Snow said faintly, and his eyes were filled with joy. Sure enough, it was just as she had thought. Damn Guyuna, she actually wanted to test the relationship between her and Lu Yuan. Humph, how could I let her have her way? Chihiro Snow's thoughts turned, and he asked with slight concern, How is Obuchi's situation now? Obuchi's situation is very good. There is only the most crucial step to becoming a god. Once this step is taken, he will truly become a god and be completely invincible in the world. With Lu Yuan's strength, once he became a god, he would absolutely be completely invincible. This was something that both Gu Yuna and Chihiro Snow firmly believed without a doubt. Therefore, when he heard the news about Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow was very happy in his heart. He was sincerely happy for Lu Yuan. It's good that Obuchi is fine. This way, I can rest assured, but Chihiro Snow said, and he could not help but pause slightly. But what? Gu Yuna asked doubtfully. But if Obuchi doesn't come, it will be very difficult for the two of us to deal with that guy. His strength is already at the Divine King level, and he is extremely difficult to deal with. Chihiro Snow looked at Lucifer, and his voice was filled with fear. She was completely vulnerable in the hands of Lucifer. Even if she used the life-risking skill of the Sun Angel, it was still easily broken by Lucifer. She already had a faint sense of fear in her heart. Divine King? Gu Yuna softly muttered, and a glimmer of light flashed through her purple eyes. She said lightly, "Leave it to me. Can you deal with him? That's a Divine King." Chihiro Snow said with some doubt, "Don't worry, it's just a Divine King. I'm confident." Gu Yuna's tone was full of strong confidence. She believed that she would have no problem dealing with Lucifer alone. Moreover, even if she could not win against Lucifer, she could not lose. After being strengthened by Lu Yuan, she was no longer the Gu Yuna of the past. Chapter 1168. Only a Divine King. Chihiro Snow was stunned by Gu Yuna's words. Were people nowadays so arrogant? A Divine King was only a Divine King? What is your strength? Chihiro Snow asked curiously. If she could say that she was only a Divine King, then her strength couldn't be weaker than a Divine King. I'm also only a Divine King. Of course, there are differences in strength between Divine Kings, Gu Yuna said. Gu Yuna said calmly. Her face was filled with confidence, which surprised Qianren Shue. Was Gu Yuna really a Divine King? Looks like I'm still far from it. Chihiro Snow sighed. He thought he could catch up to Gu Yuna after becoming a god, but in the end, there was still an insurmountable gap between them. She was only a first-tier god, while Gu Yuna was a Divine King. She had already experienced the difference between a first-tier god and a Divine King. I still have to work hard. It doesn't matter if I'm weaker than Obuchi. He's my man, but I can't be weaker than others, especially Gu Yuna. She's also Obuchi's woman. How can I always be weaker than her? Chihiro Snow muttered to himself. He secretly mustered up his courage and strengthened his resolve to become stronger. Gu Yuna naturally didn't know Chihiro Snow's thoughts. She patted Chihiro Snow's shoulder and said, "You don't have much divine energy left. Go and recover first. I'll deal with him. Be careful." Seeing Gu Yuna's confident expression, Chihiro Snow nodded and didn't refuse. Her divine energy was indeed almost completely exhausted. Even if she stayed on the battlefield, she wouldn't be of much help. On the contrary, she might even cause trouble for Gu Yuna, preventing her from using her full strength. "I know. You can go now." Gu Yuna nodded gently and said in an indifferent voice, "Okay." Chihiro Snow nodded. He glanced at Lucifer again, unwilling to give up. Then, he quickly flew down to the Martial Spirit Palace. Seeing Chihiro Snow leave, Lucifer didn't stop him. His gaze remained fixed on Gu Yuna. Compared to Chihiro Snow, Gu Yuna's appearance was not inferior in the slightest. She was also beautiful to the point that it moved his heart. What made Lucifer even more vigilant was that not only was Gu Yuna's aura not weaker than his, but she also controlled the power of space. She was an opponent of the same level as him. Moreover, the power of space was quite difficult to deal with. As a 12-winged fallen angel, other than the powers of darkness and death, his greatest advantage was his speed. His natural 12 wings made his speed unparalleled. No one among the 5 divine kings could beat him in terms of speed. If he had not been too careless, the Azura god and the Destruction god would not have been able to catch him and seal him. However, Guyuna was different. She controlled the power of space. No matter how fast he was, he couldn't be faster than Guyuna, who controlled space. Therefore, the speed that he was so proud of might not be very effective against Guyuna. Just this point alone was enough for him to be serious. Lucifer was observing Guyuna, and Guyuna's attention was also focused on Lucifer. Although she said that he was only a godly king, she would be a fool to underestimate a godly king. No matter what, godly kings were still the most powerful beings in the world. Lu Yuan could easily defeat a godly king with a god-slaying spear, but she was still much weaker than Lu Yuan. Therefore, she also had to be very focused and fight with all her strength. I didn't think that there would be another godly king on the Douluo continent aside from me. I'm very surprised. Also, I take a closer look. You don't seem to be human. Instead, you're somewhat similar to a powerful being that I've seen in the past. Lucifer spoke in an indifferent voice as he appraised Guyuna with a peculiar look in his eyes. He had been sealed a long time ago. Back when he was sealed, the dragon god was still alive, and the battle between the dragon gods had only begun after he was sealed. As such, he wasn't aware of Guyuna's identity as the Silver Dragon King. He only felt that Guyuna's aura was rather familiar. After all, Lucifer had also met the dragon god in the past. Of course, the two of them didn't share a good relationship. The dragon god was a proud and righteous god, and he was also a righteous god. He was rather displeased with a god like Lucifer, and had even taught him a lesson. In the face of the dragon god, Lucifer had been completely thrashed. As such, he was filled with resentment, and the dragon god's aura was still very fresh in his mind. Even after so long, he still couldn't forget it. You've met a powerful being? Are you talking about the dragon god who once thrashed you? Guyuna's red lips parted slightly, and there was a hint of teasing in her tone. Lucifer didn't remember her, but she remembered him. As the clone of the dragon god, she had also inherited the memories of the dragon god, so she still had some impression of Lucifer, who had been thrashed. This was also the reason why she had looked down on Lucifer in the beginning. After all, Lucifer had been beaten by the dragon god back then, and he had to grovel and beg for mercy. These things were still vivid in her mind. If it weren't for Lucifer's immortal body, the dragon god would have already killed him back then. For such a person, even if she knew that his strength wasn't bad, it was difficult for Guyuna to have much respect for him. You know the dragon god? Yes, the aura on your body is very similar to the dragon god's. What is your relationship with the dragon god? Lucifer's face darkened. There were two most humiliating things in his life, and one of them was being beaten by the dragon god back then, and finally kneeling and begging for mercy. This was a taboo in his heart, and now that Guyuna had brought it up, the scar in Lucifer's heart was torn open, and intense fury and resentment erupted from his heart. He no longer had any intention of taking Guyuna as his woman. No matter how beautiful Guyuna was, all he wanted to do now was to viciously tear Guyuna to shreds. Anyone who knew about what had happened back then had to die. I'm one of the dragon god's clones, and they all call me the Silver Dragon King. Lucifer, the dragon god, let you off back then, but I didn't think that you would still be so unrepentant. Let me send you to hell today. Guyuna let loose a delicate cry, and the massive silver dragon wings on her back unfurled. She waved a hand through the air, and the silver dragon spear immediately appeared in her hand. A burst of powerful dragon's might immediately erupted forth, soaring into the clouds. Furthermore, this aura quickly spread in all directions with Guyuna at the center. In the face of Guyuna's aura, the darkness receded, and the long-awaited sunlight shone through, illuminating the dark earth once again. In the instant that Guyuna's aura completely erupted, the 5 paramount figures outside the Douluo continent plane couldn't help but raise their heads in unison. Chapter 1169. What's this aura? Shura Shun, who was wearing a set of crimson divine armor, couldn't help but raise an eyebrow upon sensing Guyuna's powerful aura. He sensed that the aura was extremely powerful. It had definitely reached the level of a god king. Moreover, there was something different about the aura. It was completely different from their auras. This is the Silver Dragon King's aura. The destruction god's purple eyes flashed with killing intent. As the fairest and most responsible enforcer of the god realm, the destruction god had to follow the rules of the god realm. According to the rules of the god realm, the Silver Dragon King was at the top of the must-kill list, so he had to kill Gu Yuna. I didn't think that the Silver Dragon King would be hiding on the Douluo continent. We didn't know about it all these years, the kind God King said in a gentle voice. The God King was indeed a kind-hearted person, but her attitude toward the soul beast was no different from that of everyone else. She supported the decision to suppress the soul beasts, and she also wanted to get rid of Gu Yuna as soon as possible. The Silver Dragon King has been hiding on the Douluo continent for so long, and we didn't notice it at all. It's our fault, but since she's appeared today, we can't give up on this opportunity. After the Dragon God died, he split into the Golden Dragon King and Silver Dragon King. The Golden Dragon King has been sealed in the God realm, so the only threat left to the soul beasts is the Silver Dragon King. This time, we can kill the Silver Dragon King and completely eliminate the threat of the soul beasts. The black-robed God King of Evil said indifferently. His voice was filled with dense killing intent. As the leader of the God realm, his attitude toward the soul beasts was obviously to suppress them. As for Gu Yuna, he had to get rid of her. His goal was to eliminate the threat and consolidate his rule. After all, the War of the Gods was a struggle for power in the God realm. Gu Yuna told Lu Yuan that the gods deliberately suppressed the soul beasts, and the dragon god couldn't take it anymore and rebelled. However, even Lu Yuan wasn't completely sure what the exact situation was. Gu Yuna's words were definitely true, but they couldn't be completely true. Her words were naturally on the side of the soul beast, because she herself was a soul beast. Since she persuaded Lu Yuan to help her, she would naturally say good things about the soul beast and the dragon god. Naturally, the ones who were complaining were the gods of the god realm. And in the mouth of the gods of the divine realm, the outbreak of the divine war was completely blamed on the dragon god. They even described the dragon god as an evil god. You call me a hypocrite and I call you a beast, but in the end, it's all because of the struggle for power. Whether it's the soul beasts or the gods of the god realm, they all want to fight for more authority. Sometimes there was no such thing as absolute good and evil. There was only a difference in standpoints. The dragon god was definitely right and righteous, but was the god realm completely evil and hypocritical? On the other hand, the god realm must be righteous, and the soul beasts must be evil. Must they be exterminated? No, this kind of thing couldn't be described as simply good and evil. It could only be said that the winner was king and the loser was in the wrong. If the gods of the god realm had been defeated, then the soul beasts would have unified the god realm. Then, would humans still have their current status? That would be impossible. At that time, the soul beasts would have dominated the world. So from the perspective of the evil gods, from the perspective of the victors, they eliminated the soul beast clan and continued to suppress them. Although it was inhumane, it was understandable. And in order to consolidate their rule, it was normal to hunt down Gu Yuna. Of course, from Gu Yuna's perspective, it was completely different. Countless soul beasts had died, the dragon clan had fallen, and even the dragon god had been split in half. This kind of blood feud naturally had to be avenged. She wanted to take revenge, and no one had any reason to stop her, because it was also a matter of course. On the other hand, Lu Yuan rebelled against the god realm in the beginning because Gu Yuna was his woman. If he didn't have a relationship with Gu Yuna, he wouldn't have rebelled against the god realm for nothing. After all, no one liked to look for trouble, and he was only doing this because of his relationship with Gu Yuna and his own bloodline. However, Lu Yuan's standpoint was different from Gu Yuna's and the god realms. He had a special identity as both a human and a pure dragon bloodline, so he advocated for peaceful coexistence between humans and soul beasts. Furthermore, the Douluo continent's cultivation method was very abnormal. Blindly hunting soul beasts would definitely lead to the extinction of soul beasts one day, and the ecological chain would be severely damaged. Hence, for the sake of the Douluo continent, this cultivation method had to be changed. In order to change the cultivation method and rules, they had to take care of the God Realm first. The God Realm was the driving force behind all of this. This was the second reason why Lu Yuan was rebelling against the God Realm. Hence, one standpoint really did determine one's actions and attitude. No one objected to the evil God King's words. Even the life goddess, who had always respected and cherished life, remained silent. She was a kind and compassionate person, but she could only support the decision of the other four God Kings. After all, she was also a God King of the God Realm. The evil God King looked around and nodded in satisfaction when he saw that everyone had the same opinion. Let's hurry up and break this heavenly darkness seal. The Silver Dragon King and Lucifer are both great enemies of the God Realm. This time, we can't let a single one of them escape. The evil God King said, "Yes." The other God Kings replied in unison. They nodded slightly and increased the speed of the energy infusion in their hands. Under the full efforts of the five God Kings, the sturdy heavenly darkness seal was slowly being broken through at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the sky above the martial soul palace, Guyuna was releasing her divine might. Her silver dress danced in the wind, and her silver hair fluttered. She held the silver dragon spear in her right hand, and her dragon wings flapped behind her back. Her beautiful purple eyes blinked gently. Just as the five God Kings could detect her, she could also sense their arrival. However, she didn't panic at all. After dealing with Lucifer, she could tear the space apart and escape at any time. So what if the five God Kings had gathered? If they couldn't catch up to her, then everything would be in vain. Facing Guyuna, who was releasing her aura, Lucifer's face turned solemn. Guyuna wasn't Chihiro Snow. She was an expert at the same level as him, a genuine God King. Hence, even he had to go all out. With a thought, a dark light gathered in Lucifer's hand. A huge black sword flashed out, emitting a dense energy of depravity and death. Chapter 1170. The Fallen Holy Sword, also known as the Holy Sword of Death, was the name of this sword. It was a genuine supra-divine tool. As a divine king expert, Lucifer naturally had his own super-divine weapon. Moreover, his super-divine tool was very powerful. In terms of offensive power, it was not much weaker than Lu Yuan's Azura Holy Sword. As soon as the Fallen Holy Sword appeared, Lucifer's aura skyrocketed. Dense darkness spread out from his body towards Guyuna once more. Guyuna snorted coldly. Her aura increased once more, suppressing the darkness that filled the sky. The entire sky was divided into two distinct halves by the two of them. One side was filled with deep darkness, while the other side was filled with the radiance of the sun. The entire world was illuminated by the radiance of the sun. As the Silver Dragon King who controlled the elements, Guyuna was proficient in many elements. Light was one of them. Chihiro Snow could obtain energy from the sun, and so could Guyuna. The light and heat emitted by the sun could also be used as a source of energy for her. Light and darkness formed a clear boundary. Everyone in the martial spirit city was watching the battle and cheering for Guyuna. Compared to Lucifer, who was filled with depravity and endless darkness, Guyuna's image was undoubtedly more popular. Many people had even begun to view Guyuna as a savior. Especially after Chihiro Snow's defeat, Guyuna became their only hope. I wonder if Guyuna can win. In front of the martial spirit palace, Chihiro Snow looked into the sky and muttered to himself. Guyuna was a god king, and so was Lucifer. Although Guyuna appeared to be very confident, Chihiro Snow was still somewhat worried. After all, Guyuna was not Lu Yuan. Although she was strong, she could not give him a sense of security. If it were Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow was confident that he could win, no matter who the opponent was. However, he did not have such firm confidence in Guyuna. After all, Guyuna rarely fought, and Chihiro Snow hadn't seen many of her battles. It was normal for him to be worried. "Don't worry, she will win." A voice came from beside Chihiro's snow, and Bibidon's figure slowly appeared. She had just returned from the great Star-Doe forest, and she immediately spoke when she heard Chihiro Snow mumbling to himself. "You're back." Chihiro Snow tilted her head slightly, and Bibidon's figure entered her sight. Her red lips parted slightly, and a pleasant voice sounded. "Yes, I'm back. After receiving Tion's report, I set off to return. I didn't expect that I would still be a step too late. Are you injured?" There was a trace of concern in Bibidon's eyes. Her relationship with Chihiro Snow had been getting better and better over the past few days, and they were also getting along very well. Therefore, she couldn't help but be concerned about Chihiro Snow. "I'm not injured, but it's all thanks to Guyuna. Otherwise, I would have been in real danger." Chihiro Snow shook his head, and then softly recounted what had happened. Bibidon furrowed her brows when she heard his story, and her pink eyes were overflowing with killing intent. "How dare this Lucifer?" Bibidon shouted. She didn't expect Chihiro Snow to be on the brink of death in such a short period of time. Furthermore, this Lucifer dared to covet Chihiro Snow. He was really courting death. It's a pity that Obuchi isn't here. Otherwise, with his temper, he would definitely skin this Lucifer alive and make him suffer a fate worse than death. Bibidon sighed softly. She understood Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan was usually quite easy to get along with, but when things involved them, he would immediately become a different person. If anyone dared to hurt them, Lu Yuan's revenge would definitely be quite terrifying. If Lu Yuan knew what Lucifer did to Chihiro Snow, she dared to guarantee that Lucifer would definitely die miserably. It's just that she didn't expect that Lu Yuan would fall into deep meditation and couldn't arrive. Needless to say, Bibidon also knew that Chihiro Snow's heart must be very regretful, because when she encountered such a crisis, Lu Yuan couldn't personally save her, and Chihiro Snow undoubtedly hoped that Lu Yuan would appear to save her. Bibidon asked herself, if she was Chihiro Snow, she would also look forward to Lu Yuan's rescue. Obuchi will come sooner or later, and I have a hunch that this Lucifer will eventually be dealt with by Obuchi himself. Chihiro Snow had already calmed down, and her golden eyes flickered slightly as she said softly, "Is that so? Don't you believe in Guyuna's strength?" "Guyuna is very strong. Obuchi once revealed to me that Guyuna is one of the top powerhouses in the world, and in a one-on-one situation, she won't lose to anyone in the world. Even he doesn't have the confidence to win against Guyuna." I rarely heard such a high evaluation from Obuchi, Bibidon said in a low voice. "Oh, when did Obuchi tell you? Why didn't I know about it all?" Chihiro Snow asked curiously. "Before he went into seclusion, I was walking with him, and he inadvertently revealed it, so I wrote it down." Bibidon said, "I see. Obuchi is definitely telling the truth, but even if Guyuna can defeat Lucifer, she may not be able to kill him. These are two different things." Chihiro Snow shook his head. He naturally believed Lu Yuan's words. Since Lu Yuan said that no one could defeat Guyuna on their own, then that had to be the case. However, sometimes winning didn't necessarily mean that one could kill their opponent. After all, Tang Walin was a godly monarch. How could he be killed so easily? "That's true." Bibidon nodded. Chihiro Snow's words made a lot of sense. Sometimes, even if victory could be determined, it would be difficult to determine life and death. Just like the three exceptional Douluo, Tang Chun had always been stronger than Sindoryu. It wasn't difficult for Tang Chun to defeat Sindoryu, but it was almost impossible for him to kill Sindoryu. If he had to do that, the result might be mutual destruction. Sindoryu couldn't defeat Tang Chun, but it wouldn't be a big problem for him to drag Tang Chun to his death. If one wanted to kill Tang Walin, one party had to be much stronger than the other. When the gap between the two parties was very small, it was almost impossible to kill the other party. Bibidong and Qian Renshua naturally wouldn't be unaware of this logic. They've started fighting. Suddenly, Chihiro Snow's eyes focused. Gu Yuna and Lucifer had already begun to clash in the sky. The black and silver figures clashed violently, and the battle was extremely intense. The void was exploding, and the earth was trembling. Compared to Chihiro Snow's previous battle, the destructive power of their battle was many times stronger. The shockwaves from the battle between the two god kings affected the entire Douluo continent. If godly kings went all out, they could destroy a planet like the Douluo star. If a first-tier god went all out, they could destroy a small planet. Douluo planet was naturally far stronger than a small planet, but god kings were also far stronger than first-tier gods. Destroying a Douluo planet wasn't too difficult for them, appropriately magnifying a god's destructive power. Don't think too much about it. The original god's performance was too low. Although the two of them were fighting at an altitude of 10,000 meters, the shockwaves from their battle still caused Martial Spirit City to tremble. There were faint traces of cracks on the ground. Mountains collapsed, and the earth cracked all over the Douluo continent, and floods surged. The two of them fought as they moved. In just a short moment, they had already crossed half of the Douluo continent. It's really a battle between gods. Chihiro Snow and Bibidon looked at each other and shook their heads helplessly. Open the Great City Barrier Formation, Bibidon said plainly. Okay. Chihiro Snow nodded slightly. The Great City Barrier Formation was a sole defensive formation personally set up by Lu Yuan. It was formed by dozens of Class 9 soul tools and hundreds of Class 8 soul tools. It was absolutely impregnable. Naturally, it was far from enough to withstand a direct attack from a God King. However, it was still able to resist some of the shockwaves from afar. Under Chihiro Snow's control, the Great City Barrier Formation was opened. A golden light barrier enveloped the entire Martial Spirit City. Immediately, the Martial Spirit City stopped shaking, and the cracks on the ground stopped expanding. It's indeed effective. Looking at the Martial Spirit City that had regained its peace, Bibidon couldn't help but curl the corners of his lips into a beautiful smile. Of course it's effective. This was specially prepared by Obuchi to prevent the War of the Gods from affecting the Martial Spirit City. It came in handy today. Chihiro Snow smiled brightly. Indeed, Lu Yuan was far-sighted. He had thought of this early on. Apart from the Martial Spirit City, Heaven Do City, Star Luo City, Dragon King Hall, and the Seven Treasures Glazed Sex encampments also raised similar light barriers to protect the surrounding areas. As for the other cities, they weren't so lucky. The ground cracked, houses collapsed, and flood spread. The number of casualties was not small. However, this was also a helpless move. This kind of great city barrier formation consumed too much energy. Even the Martial Spirit Empire didn't have the financial resources to cover all the cities on the continent. Therefore, they could only protect the most prestigious, economically prosperous, and populous regions for the time being. This was also something that couldn't be helped. Of course, with the development of the Martial Spirit Empire, this kind of great city barrier formation would be implemented to all the cities on the continent sooner or later. However, it would still take a lot of time. Bang! The silver dragon spear and the fallen holy sword clashed once more, and violent energy fluctuations erupted. The sound of the sea water roaring could be heard. Unknowingly, the two of them had fought from the Martial Spirit Palace to the sea. The Douluo continent was incomparably huge to ordinary people, but could be traversed in the blink of an eye by God Kings. The two of them fought above the sea, and the residual energy from their battle created huge waves that were hundreds of meters tall. As their battle continued, a terrifying tsunami appeared above the sea. Sea God's Island. Pasizi sat on a futon in the Sea God's Palace. Her eyes were closed, and her expression was tranquil. Her long blue hair fell to her waist, and her jade-like cheeks were delicate and smooth, exquisite and perfect. A quiet and tranquil aura emanated from her body. This woman was still so beautiful, and her face was flawless. Her temperament was even more outstanding. Ever since she had made a promise with Lu Yuan, she had kept her word and stayed outside the Sea God's Island. She hadn't taken a single step out. Suddenly, the Sea God's Palace shook violently. Pasizi's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened, and a fierce look flashed through her beautiful blue eyes. Pasisi's figure flashed, and she was already above the ring-shaped sea. She looked over and saw two figures, one silver and one black, fighting fiercely in the sky. The terrifying shock waves from their battle affected the entire sea god's island. Senior Pasisi, Hulina, Zhu Zhuqing, and the others rushed over. They also looked at the battle in the sky with solemn expressions. They had already passed the 5th test and were in the middle of the 6th test. This sudden change naturally interrupted their test. Who are those two? What a powerful aura. Even from so far away, I feel like kneeling and submitting to them. Evil Moon spoke softly, and there was a look of surprise on her face. Their auras are even stronger than that guy's. How is that possible? Pasisi's eyes were filled with disbelief. Whether it was Lu Yuan or Gu Yuna, their auras were even stronger than the Lu Yuan she remembered. How could there be such terrifying people in this world? When she had separated from Lu Yuan's aura was barely comparable to a first-rank god. It was naturally far from comparable to the auras of two god kings. Pasisi was stunned, as this was the first time she had seen a god king's aura. She had always thought that Lu Yuan was the strongest person on the Douluo continent. She didn't expect there to be such a powerhouse on the Douluo continent. Of course, that was only Lu Yuan. Pasisi didn't think that the current Lu Yuan was inferior to them. After all, she had been separated from Lu Yuan for close to 2 years. Even she didn't dare to speculate just how powerful Lu Yuan had become during such a long period of time. After all, Lu Yuan's growth rate had always been inhuman. Isn't that Gu Yuna? Zhu Zhuqing exclaimed as a hint of surprise flashed through her eyes. Pasisi and the others had never seen Gu Yuna before, so they couldn't recognize her. However, she had met Gu Yuna before, so she was naturally able to recognize her. That is indeed Gu Yuna. I didn't think that she would be so powerful. Hearing Zhu Zhuqing's words, Hulaina took a serious look and immediately recognized it. She couldn't help but ask, "Do you know her?" Pasisi asked in a curious manner. "We do. She's Obuchi's woman," Ning Rongrong said. "She's also his woman?" Pasisi was stunned. Such a powerful being was also that guy's woman? That bastard is pretty strong. By sigh, she sighed softly. Lu Yuan was really good at this. She was not the only one who was deeply in love with him. Now, he was even able to get such a strong cultivator to join him. Pasisi looked up at Gu Yuna again, and a hint of surprise appeared on her face. Gu Yuna was so powerful, so she was naturally very curious about her. However, she quickly returned to her senses and cast her gaze toward the surging tsunami outside the sea god's island. Chapter 1171. The shockwaves from their battle had spread far and wide, and the two of them were the ones who had caused the tsunami. To Pasisi and the others, this tsunami was nothing. It couldn't hurt them at all. After all, they were already quite strong. However, this tsunami would cause great damage to the sea god's island if it came ashore. There were still many weak soul masters and residents on the sea god's island. If the tsunami were to strike, many of them would be killed. Bai Saishi's face changed, and he disappeared. He quickly contacted the 7 Holy Pillars Guardian and activated the pillars. The 7 Saint Pillars shone brightly, and 7 pillars of light shot into the sky. They fused together to form a golden barrier that enveloped the entire sea god's island. The tsunami came crashing down, and the waves were hundreds of meters tall. They slammed into the golden barrier. However, even in the face of such a powerful impact, the golden light barrier was not damaged at all. It did not even tremble. Pasisi heaved a sigh of relief, and his expression relaxed. "May the sea god protect us," Pasisi murmured. His body flashed, and he returned to the ring-shaped sea. Hulina moved closer to Pasisi and pointed at the golden barrier. "Senior Pasisi, what's this?" "This is the sea god's island guardian formation. The 7 Saint Pillars borrowed the power of the sea god to set it up." Pasisi explained. "The sea god's island guardian formation? It's similar to the martial spirit city guardian formation that Obuchi set up. However, Obuchi used a combination soul tool, while the Sea God's Island borrowed the power of the Sea God. Still, the effects are similar. Hulina couldn't help but praise Pasizi when she heard his explanation. That fellow? Pasizi paused for a moment, and a trace of affection flashed through his blue eyes. A warm smile appeared on his face. I wonder how that fellow is doing now. Pasizi's voice was very calm, but there was a sense of longing hidden in his voice. She had been alone on the Sea God's Island for so long, and she really missed Lu Yuan. She didn't know how Lu Yuan was doing. However, she had promised Lu Yuan that she wouldn't leave the Sea God's Island before Lu Yuan came. Lu Yuan had even threatened her that if she dared to step onto the continent, he wouldn't accept her. As such, she could only obediently stay on the Sea God's Island. She knew that Lu Yuan was concerned about her and her safety, so she didn't blame Lu Yuan. However, Lu Yuan hadn't come even once after so long, and she couldn't help but feel a little resentful. She didn't know when she would be able to truly consummate her relationship with Lu Yuan. Don't worry, Senior Pasizi. With Obuchi's abilities, no one in this world can hurt him. Hulina smiled and consoled her. As Lu Yuan's senior sister, she had been by Lu Yuan's side since he was 6. She had fallen in love with Lu Yuan even earlier than Chihiro Snow. If Lu Yuan hadn't acted quickly and kissed Chihiro Snow first to settle things, perhaps she would have been Lu Yuan's first girlfriend. As a result, she had great trust in Lu Yuan since she was young. This was even more so now. She firmly believed that Lu Yuan's existence was invincible. No one could be his opponent. Pasizi glanced at Hulina and said, "Of course I know he'll be fine. You just miss him a little, don't you?" Ning Rongrong's charming voice suddenly rang out. Her soft and sweet voice faintly carried a hint of teasing. Pasizi liked Lu Yuan, and the others had long known. After all, it wasn't like they didn't notice the intimacy between Lu Yuan and Pasizi. Hulina even knew that Lu Yuan and Pasizi had kissed, and Lu Yuan himself didn't have any intention of hiding it, so they all knew what they should know. Regarding this matter, although they were a little surprised at first, they didn't resist. After all, Pasizi was quite easy to get along with. Except for occasionally throwing a tantrum with Lu Yuan, she was gentle and quiet in front of them. She was very popular with the girls, and after getting along for so long, their relationship was also quite good. Therefore, Ning Rongrong even dared to tease Pasizi. Hearing Ning Rongrong's words, Pasizi's pretty face blushed slightly. Her eyes were a little evasive as she quickly denied, "Who misses him? I don't miss him." "Really? If that's the case, then the next time I see Obuchi, I can only tell him that Senior Pasizi doesn't miss him at all." Alas, Ning Rongrong sighed and said softly with a hint of slyness in her eyes, "Little Ning, don't you dare." Pasizi immediately became anxious. If Lu Yuan really believed Ning Rongrong's words, then it would be too late for her to cry. Lu Yuan wouldn't think that she didn't like him, right? Although with Lu Yuan's wisdom, he could tell that Ning Rongrong was joking, but what if he really believed it? Pasizi didn't dare to gamble on this kind of thing. "Hee, I don't dare, but Senior Pasizi, are you admitting that you miss Obuchi?" Ning Rongrong giggled. "So what if I miss him? Can't I?" Pasizi glanced at Ning Rongrong. Her face was flushed as she said stubbornly. Since she couldn't hide it, she could only confess. She missed Lu Yuan, so what? "Of course you can. Hee, Senior Pasizi, I heard that Obuchi hasn't completely accepted you. Do you want me to help?" Ning Rongrong giggled and whispered, "No, I can do it myself. You should take care of yourself." Pasizi waved her hand and rejected Ning Rongrong directly. The matter between her and Lu Yuan wasn't something that Ning Rongrong could help with. It wasn't that Lu Yuan didn't like her, but he was worried about her safety and didn't want to implicate her. Knowing this point was enough for her. Moreover, she wanted to rely on herself to capture Lu Yuan. "That's a pity. I have a few ways to help," Ning Rongrong said. What can you do? Drug him." Just as Ning Rongrong's voice fell, Zhu Zhuqing's cold voice sounded. Ning Rongrong's little face stiffened. This was a hurdle that she couldn't get over in her life. Zhu Qing, can we not talk about this matter? Ning Rongrong said pitifully. No. Zhu Qing shook her head. Her voice was cold. She would remember this matter for the rest of her life. That time, she almost let Ning Rongrong steal her pagoda. It was clearly in order, but in the end, Ning Rongrong almost snatched it before her. She didn't care about other things, but when it came to her and Lu Yuan, she cared a lot. Drug him? What drug? Hulina's curious voice sounded. Her intuition told her that she seemed to have discovered a big secret. Nothing. Zhu Qing is just talking nonsense. Don't mind it. Ning Rongrong quickly waved her hand. This matter couldn't be spread, or she would be too ashamed to face others. Why are you so agitated if there's nothing? Hulina glanced at Ning Rongrong suspiciously. Her eyes flickered slightly, as if she had thought of something. She drove Evil Moon and the other unrelated people back, leaving only Pasizi, Zhu Qing, and Lu Yuan's women. If you confess, you'll be lenient. If you resist, you'll be strict. Now you can tell me what's going on. Hulina rolled up her sleeves and stared at Ning Rongrong. Pasizi also cast a scrutinizing gaze. It's really nothing. Ning Rongrong trembled under their gazes, but she still insisted on her last stubbornness. This matter couldn't be said. Zhu Qing. Hulina looked at Zhu Qing. Zhu Qing paused slightly. Just as she was about to speak, Ning Rongrong looked at her with pitiful eyes. Her eyes were full of pleading. Zhu Qing, you said you wouldn't tell? Ning Rongrong whispered. I said I wouldn't take the initiative to tell others, but I didn't say I wouldn't answer if someone asked, Zhu Qing said lightly. Is there a difference? Ning Rongrong widened her eyes. Of course there's a difference. Hulina answered Ning Rongrong first. She turned to Zhu Qing and said, Zhu Qing, don't worry about her. Tell me. Okay. Zhu Qing nodded gently, ignoring Ning Rongrong's pitiful eyes. She said, in fact, it's nothing. It's just that Obuchi didn't accept her back then. In order to pursue Obuchi, she wanted to make things happen. So she directly drugged Obuchi. What? She drugged Obuchi? Hulina was stunned. Then, her big pink eyes flashed with anger. She stared straight at Ning Rongrong. Rongrong, I didn't expect you to be so bold. Indeed, you are bold. Pasizi's beautiful blue eyes flickered slightly. He didn't expect Ning Rongrong to have such a bold side. To be honest, she dared to kiss Lu Yuan forcefully. She even dared to throw a tantrum in front of Lu Yuan. However, she didn't dare to drug him. Who knew what would happen if Lu Yuan woke up? He might fly into a rage, out of humiliation, and leave. If that happened, she would end up losing the rice used to lure the chicken. Ning Rongrong did need a certain amount of courage to dare to do this. I didn't have a choice. I'm not you. Do you know how hard it was for me to chase him back then? You don't know at all. Ning Rongrong pouted and began to pour out her grievances. Emotional words came out of her mouth. Hulina and Pasizi were both stunned. Zhu Qing rolled her eyes. She knew very well what happened back then. Lu Yuan didn't like Ning Rongrong at first. At most, he had a good impression of her. In the end, Ning Rongrong drugged him. Lu Yuan and Ning Rongrong's relationship was cultivated after that incident. It was true that Ning Rongrong was in pain from chasing him. However, Lu Yuan couldn't be blamed because he didn't do anything overboard. He also didn't show any affection. It was completely unrequited love on Ning Rongrong's part. Unlike Pasizi now, although it was also difficult to chase him, she knew that Lu Yuan liked Pasizi very much. Although Lu Yuan rejected Pasizi and didn't immediately accept her, making such a decision made Lu Yuan feel quite tormented in his heart. As someone who had accompanied Lu Yuan all the way and followed Lu Yuan closely, she could clearly see these things. Looking at the three women beside her again, Zhu Qing's eyes drifted. Looking at Gu Yuna in the sky, a trace of envy flashed in her eyes. If she could be as strong as Gu Yuna, perhaps she would have been able to stay by Lu Yuan's side and go through all the hardships with him. Instead of now, She couldn't even see Lu Yuan's back. Sighing softly, Zhu Zhuqing clenched her fists. She must grow up as soon as possible. She must be able to help Lu Yuan. She must not be a burden to him. Thinking about it, Zhu Zhuqing's eyes became firm. Space cut. Gu Yuna stabbed out with her spear, and the power of space around Lucifer suddenly became restless. The invisible space turned into sharp blades that cut towards Lucifer crazily. The power of space? Interesting. Lucifer smiled evilly and slashed out with the fallen holy sword in his hand. Fallen dimensional slash. Lucifer shouted softly, and the black light turned into a huge black light blade, completely tearing apart the space blades that rushed towards him. After tearing apart the space blades, the light blade didn't stop and continued to attack Gu Yuna. Gu Yuna's expression didn't change. Her silver dragon spear bloomed with a bright silver light, and a huge silver spear aura that was hundreds of feet long directly blocked the black light blade and shattered it. Although she was the Silver Dragon King and specialized in the elements, she also had her own understanding of the spear. Although she didn't pay attention to it usually, after so many years, her spear Dao had reached the level of spear soul. Sometimes, living for a long time did indeed have a great advantage. Hey! Lucifer's scarlet eyes bloomed with red light, and the fallen holy sword slashed down again. Gu Yuna didn't back down, and silver light erupted from her silver dragon spear as she unleashed a series of terrifying attacks. The two of them engaged in an intense battle, and as they fought, they moved from the sea to the nameless continent. This continent just so happened to be the continent where Lu Yuan was in seclusion, and it was also the future star Luo continent. The Dragon Valley small world was attached to this continent. After forcing Lucifer back with her spear, Gu Yuna's purple eyes suddenly focused. Why did they fight here? Although the Dragon Valley was a small world, it was still attached to this continent. If this continent were to become chaotic, it would inevitably affect the Dragon Valley, and it wouldn't be good if Lu Yuan was disturbed. No, I have to change the battlefield again. Gu Yuna's heart stirred, and her aura suddenly increased, and a series of sharp spear auras flustered Lucifer a little. What's wrong with this woman? Why is she suddenly so fierce? Lucifer was surprised. This could only be considered a normal battle, but it looked like Gu Yuna was going to give it her all. However, since Gu Yuna had already done this, Lucifer naturally wasn't going to fall behind. His aura increased drastically, and Lucifer's attacks also became more powerful. He was unleashing his full power. Fallen Dark Angel. Lucifer swung his fallen holy sword horizontally, and dense black light surged from his body, forming a 12-winged fallen angel over 10,000 feet in size, exuding an extremely terrifying destructive power. Chapter 1172. Fallen Dark Angel. This was Lucifer's exclusive profound. It was an extremely powerful divine skill. Compared to Chihiro Snow's Sun Angel, this move was much more powerful. The huge dark angel brandished the huge black sword and chopped down at Gu Yuna. Gu Yuna's beautiful purple eyes flickered slightly, and her body shone with silver light, and the surrounding spatial force instantly became violent. Profound spatial storm. Gu Yuna yelled out. The space around her exploded, and an endless amount of space energy swept out, forming a huge dimensional storm. Even if a first great god were to fall into it, he would be turned into ashes in an instant. The huge black sword and the huge dimensional storm collided, and immediately, as if Mars had collided with Earth, set off a terrifying explosion. Suffering the backlash of the energy explosion, Gu Yuna retreated several thousand meters before stabilizing her body. Lucifer on the opposite side was the same. The huge dark angel collapsed into nothingness, and his whole body retreated several thousand meters. Both of them were god kings, so they were not injured, but their internal breathing was slightly disordered. The huge mass of energy that went out of control was wreaking havoc crazily, and the continent below was was greatly affected. The continent began to shake, and many places even cracked open. Magma gushed out from the ground, and everywhere it passed, it was destroyed. The impact of a battle between god kings was too great. Even if they were fighting high up in the sky, the aftermath of the battle was still extremely destructive. This continent was ownerless and had no protection. Under the attack of such energy, the destruction caused was quite serious. Damn it! Looking at the continent that was beginning to collapse, Gu Yuna frowned. She originally thought that Lucifer was only SOSO, but she did not expect his strength to be so outstanding. According to the strength that Lucifer had displayed, he was not inferior to any god king in the divine world. Even the evil god king or Azura god king were at most on par with Lucifer. Therefore, even though she had greatly increased her strength, after fighting for so long, she was only tied with Lucifer. Could it be that she really had to use those secret skills taught by Lu Yuan? Gu Yuna was a bit hesitant. Judging from her current situation, she shouldn't consume too much energy. Those secret techniques consumed a lot of energy. If she consumed too much energy, she was worried that something bad would happen. However, she looked down at the continent down below and thought of Lu Yuan, who was currently in seclusion in the Dragon Valley, and a determined look appeared in her eyes. In comparison, Lu Yuan was more important. Lu Yuan was the only one she could rely on, and he was also the hope of all soul beasts. Even if she had to sacrifice anyone, she couldn't allow Lu Yuan to be harmed. Moreover, he had only used the secret technique once, so it shouldn't have much of an effect. Gu Yuna unconsciously stroked her stomach as she thought to herself. After making up her mind, Gu Yuna looked at Lucifer with sharp, killing intent in her eyes. Gu Yuna withdrew her silver dragon spear and clenched her right hand into a claw. An extremely sharp and terrifying aura was released from her body. Lucifer's eyelids twitched when he sensed this aura, and a bad premonition surged in his heart. An indescribable sense of danger rose up, and he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. No, this skill is too dangerous. I can't let her use it. Lucifer muttered softly, and a blood-red light flashed in his scarlet eyes. The aura on his body suddenly burst forth. Thick black fog rose from Lucifer's body, and under the infusion of his divine power, it condensed into a huge black ball of light. Depravity, annihilation. Lucifer roared, and the black ball of light with a diameter of 10,000 meters flew directly towards Gu Yuna. Wherever it passed, everything, including space, was completely annihilated into nothingness by this huge ball of light. You're like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Don't you know that the true dragon treasured skill can actually be used instantaneously? Gu Yuna sneered and clawed down with her right claw. True dragon claw. In an instant, a dragon's roar shook the heavens, and a terrifying dragon's might swept through the heavens and the earth. A huge claw of 10,000 meters in size descended from the sky and directly grabbed the black ball of light. Bang! In just a moment, the black ball of light exploded and completely shattered, turning into black light spots that filled the sky. The huge claw did not stop and directly clawed at Lucifer's body under his horrified gaze. Break! Gu Yuna clenched her fist, and the huge claw closed. Immediately, Lucifer's body was completely shattered by this terrifying power. A single true dragon claw had completely destroyed the fallen god king Lucifer, and his body was completely shattered. The might of the true dragon claw was truly terrifying. Phew, what a huge consumption. No wonder Obuchi doesn't use the true dragon treasured skill often. Gu Yuna's face paled slightly. Although the true dragon claw was powerful, the consumption was not ordinary at all. Generally speaking, a skill like the true dragon claw that could surpass one's level of cultivation was used as a trump card. Gu Yuna could feel that the attack power of the true dragon claw had even surpassed the former dragon god. In the godly king realm, no one could withstand it alone. Lucifer was the best example. He was caught off guard and his whole body was completely shattered. Gu Yuna held the silver dragon spear, and a 9-colored light bloomed from her body. She was absorbing the power of the dragon god's heart to recover herself. Her expression was still serious, and she did not relax at all. As the clone of the dragon god, she, who had inherited the dragon god's memories, clearly knew that Lucifer had an immortal body. The attack just now had definitely injured him, but he would definitely not die. If Cho Mui needed to be hit 10 times in a row to kill him, then Lucifer's immortal body did not have these flaws at all. Unless it was a power that surpassed the godly king realm that could directly turn him into nothingness, it was really difficult to kill him. Back then, the dragon god, the first Azura god, and the destruction god were all unable to kill Lucifer. This was the best proof. Therefore, Guyuna would not let her guard down. Black mist rose in the void, and accompanied by Lucifer's cold laughter, his body began to condense again. Want to recover? Have you asked me? Guyuna snorted coldly, and the silver dragon spear struck out, and the little body that Lucifer had just condensed was scattered again. The black mist condensed again, and the illusory figure appeared again. However, a silver spear light flew over, and the illusory figure was shattered again. Lucifer roared crazily, his voice filled with anger. Guyuna sneered. Although the immortal body was difficult to break, it needed time to condense, and she would not give Lucifer this time. Chapter 1173. Perhaps even Lucifer himself didn't know that there was such a loophole in his immortal body. To be honest, this wasn't considered a loophole because this kind of operation required Lucifer to be completely destroyed, and it was very difficult to find a person who could destroy Lucifer in one go. The dragon god couldn't do it, and neither could the 5 god kings. Guyuna's true dragon claw had the power, but she couldn't use it a second time in a short period of time. The true dragon claw consumed a lot of energy, and Guyuna's comprehension level was far inferior to Lu Yuan's. This way, the consumption of the true dragon claw was even greater. Otherwise, Guyuna wouldn't be afraid of the 5 god kings if she could use the true dragon claw multiple times. Even if she couldn't win, it wouldn't be a problem for her to fight against 5 people for a period of time. However, with the restrictions, Guyuna could only defeat 1 person at most. It was impossible for her to fight against all of them alone. This was also one of the reasons why Guyuna had been living in seclusion for so many years. If it wasn't for the fact that she couldn't win, if it wasn't for the fact that she didn't have the confidence to win, who would be willing to hide? One had to know that whether it was Guyuna or Lu Yuan, they were quite arrogant. This kind of life of hiding was torture for them. Guyuna held the silver dragon spear, and the spear emitted a terrifying energy. From time to time, she would stab with the spear, shattering Lucifer's condensed body again. This process continued for 4 hours. Lucifer screamed, and his body was shattered again. After such a long time, he didn't know how many times he had been shattered like this. Despicable woman, I must kill you. Lucifer roared crazily, and his tone was mixed with unconcealable hatred. This time, he had completely fallen into Guyuna's hands. He had never been so powerless in his life. Even when he was beaten up by the dragon god, it wasn't as miserable as this experience. Even the Azura god and the destruction god could only use tricks to seal him, but Guyuna was really suppressing him. She didn't even give him a chance to condense his body before she shattered it. Although she couldn't kill him, this kind of behavior really disgusted him. Hearing Lucifer's roar, Guyuna sneered. Lucifer wanted to kill her? It was simply daydreaming. If it wasn't for Lucifer's immortal body, that true dragon claw would have completely killed him. Now that 4 hours had passed, the divine power in her body had been completely restored by the energy of the dragon god's heart. She had the ability to use another true dragon claw. Therefore, even if Lucifer returned to his human form, she could still teach him a lesson. Too bad I'm not Obuchi. Otherwise, I'd send you straight to hell. There was a trace of regret in Guyuna's words. Although she was strong, she couldn't do much to Lucifer. If it was Lu Yuan, Gu Yuna believed that he could definitely break Lucifer's immortal body. This was because Lu Yuan had too many tricks up his sleeve. Gu Yuna knew that there were two ways to counter his immortal body. Unfortunately, those things were exclusive to Lu Yuan. No one else could learn or use them. Send me to hell? Dream on. If you have the ability, you can continue like this for the rest of your life. Otherwise, when I recover, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Lucifer continued to threaten her. He didn't believe Gu Yuna's words at all. His immortal body was invincible, and the person who could send him to hell hadn't been born yet. Damn duck, you're still so stubborn. Gu Yuna's expression turned serious. She stabbed out with her silver dragon spear and dispersed the shadow formed by Lucifer once again. Gu Yuna withdrew her silver dragon spear. Her red lips trembled slightly. Just as she was about to say something, her expression suddenly changed. The entire Douluo continent suddenly shook. A layer of black, demonic patterns rose out of thin air in the sky, sealing the entire Douluo continent like a sky cover. Gu Yuna discovered that the black, demonic pattern sky cover was violently fluctuating, as if it was under a terrifying attack. Oh no, my dark sky seal is about to be broken. Lucifer's anxious voice rang out. The black fog condensed into an illusory figure again, staring at the black, demonic patterned sky cover in the sky without blinking. Seeing that Lucifer had condensed again, Gu Yuna habitually took out her silver dragon spear. Seeing Gu Yuna raise her silver dragon spear, Lucifer hurriedly shouted, Don't do anything. I think we should unite against the outside world now. After all, we have a common enemy. Gu Yuna's eyes narrowed slightly. Her silver dragon spear paused, and the silver-white spear light emitted a sharp aura. You have the aura of the dragon god on you and control the power of various elements. You must have the purest dragon god bloodline. However, I've also heard of the descendants of the dragon god. The 9 great dragon kings are the strongest, but you're not among them. You're much stronger than them. Furthermore, no one else knows about the matter between the dragon god and me. But I'm guessing that you should be the dragon god's clone, right? Seeing that Gu Yuna paused, Lucifer hurriedly said. Actually, he already had some guesses about Gu Yuna's identity along the way. In his impression, only the dragon god could control so many elemental powers. Furthermore, Gu Yuna's performance was too similar to the dragon gods back then, so he couldn't help but think in this direction. Many people in the god realm back then knew that the dragon god had 2 different godheads, the power of destruction and the power of creation. He had also heard about it. It was very difficult for an existence like the dragon god to be completely destroyed. However, if he was severely injured, these 2 godheads would split into 2 clones, which would be the most reasonable outcome. The dragon god's strength was the strongest in the god realm back then. Only the 5 godly kings could severely injure him. He remembered that when he was still around, the relationship between the divine beast clan and the gods was already very tense. Sooner or later, they would have to fight. Once they fought, there was no need to say who would win. The 5 of them had already decided that the divine beast clan was destined to be defeated. Furthermore, Gu Yuna had come to a small place like the Douluo continent, so the outcome was quite clear. The dragon god had been severely injured and split into 2 clones. Gu Yuna was one of them, and just like him, Gu Yuna was also wanted by the divine realm. She was hiding on the Douluo continent to avoid being hunted down. Lucifer instantly figured everything out. After all, even though he was arrogant, he wasn't brainless. He knew a lot of information, so he was able to deduce some things. In any case, he was still a godly king with a vast wealth of knowledge. Perhaps he wasn't the smartest person in the world, but he definitely wasn't an idiot. Gu Yuna's eyes flashed slightly upon hearing Lucifer's words, and a hint of surprise appeared in her eyes. She didn't think that Lucifer would be able to identify her. So what if I am? Gu Yuna asked in an indifferent voice. Seeing as you're a clone of the dragon god, I'm sure you have a vendetta against the divine realm. After all, aside from the 5 godly kings, no one else can split the dragon god into 2 clones. It's actually the same for me. I also have a vendetta against the divine realm, so we can work together to deal with our enemies," Lucifer said in a soft voice. "Then I'll let you off for now." Guyuna hesitated momentarily before her cold voice rang out. Even though she didn't like Lucifer no matter how she looked at him, she also knew that it would be a lot easier for her to have Lucifer to share her burden. Even though she was indeed thinking of running away if she couldn't win, she still had to at least fight first. Running away without a fight wasn't her style. There is a slight difference between running away after being defeated and running away at the mere sight of danger. Firstly, a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. And secondly, she was completely fearful. Even though she was wary of the 5 godly kings, she wasn't afraid of them. She had never known how to write the word fear. Lucifer was ecstatic to hear this. If Guyuna didn't agree to his request, then he would still be in this state after the divine realm descended. Needless to say, what awaited him would definitely be another seal from the divine realm. He had just been released from the seal, and he didn't want to be sealed again. Lucifer thought to himself as he sped up and began to condense his body. In the instant that Lucifer's body was completely condensed again, the dark heavenly seal in the sky was completely torn apart. Incomparably powerful auras abruptly descended, and a total of 16 gods in gorgeous armor stood at the 4 poles of heaven and earth, completely sealing off the surrounding space. Guyuna's expression changed, and she suddenly regretted not running away just now. Space sealing formation. Guyuna's expression was as cold as ice as she spat out a few words in an indifferent voice. Space sealing formation? Lucifer's expression also changed. He raised his right hand and smashed it viciously toward the space in front of him. The space tremored, but no cracks appeared. Why has space suddenly become so stable? Is this the space sealing formation? Lucifer's expression also didn't look good. The divine realm seemed to have come prepared this time. Originally, a limit Douluo could tear space, but now, a god king like him couldn't even create a crack. This space sealing formation was quite impressive. The space sealing formation uses earth, fire, water, and wind as its foundation to guard the 4 poles of heaven and earth and condensed space. Not only can it seal off space, anyone below the first tier of gods will completely lose their ability to fly. Even god kings will be affected and their speed will be greatly reduced. This forbidden sky array requires at least 4 first-level gods to set up, and this time, the god realm actually sent out 16 first-level gods. What a big deal. Guyuna looked around, and a sharp cold light flashed in her eyes. She really didn't expect the divine realm to do this. They had completely sealed off her escape route. Once the space sealing formation was set up, her plan to rely on the power of space to escape was completely ruined. A space sealing formation set up by 16 first-tier gods. Even though she was a god king and was most proficient in the power of space, she couldn't tear even a tiny bit of space. Not only did this prevent her from escaping, but it also greatly reduced her strength. At the very least, she couldn't use the power of space elements at all. Divine Realm, I've underestimated you. Guyuna gripped her silver dragon spear tightly, and her purple eyes stared intently at the sky. These 16 first-tier gods were only setting up the formation, and it was impossible to take them down. The Divine Realm's true trump card was yet to be revealed. Lucifer's expression also stiffened upon seeing this. Spatial imprisonment and speed reduction. This flight restriction grand formation wasn't just designed to deal with Guyuna, it was also designed to deal with him. After all, Guyuna's power of space was invincible, and his speed was #1 in the world. What divine realm? They've come fully prepared. Lucifer gritted his teeth, and his voice was filled with resentment. Despicable gods, they only know how to use numbers to bully others. They really don't care about martial ethics. Lucifer held the fallen holy sword tightly, and also looked at the sky, his scarlet eyes emitting a blood-red light. Under the gazes of the two, the sky shook, and 5 more powerful auras that seemed to be above heaven and earth slowly descended. The Douluo continent began to wail, and a hazy world consciousness began to tremble. Divine kings were existences that far exceeded the limit of what the Douluo continent could accommodate. A full-force attack could destroy the entire Douluo continent. The previous battle between Guyuna and Lucifer had already caused great damage to the entire Douluo continent, and now there were 5 more divine kings. When 7 divine kings fought, even the divine realm could be penetrated, let alone the Douluo continent. It would probably be torn apart in a matter of minutes. Under such circumstances, how could the Douluo world's world consciousness not wail and tremble? The world was developing well, and suddenly there were so many uninvited guests. It was also very helpless. It was just that these guys were too strong, and it couldn't afford to offend any of them. 5 huge pillars of light appeared in the sky, and they were respectively white, black, red, purple, and green. These 5 pillars of light were incomparably huge, and the light was also very dazzling. Even the radiance of the sun in the sky was completely blocked. These 5 huge pillars of light that emitted a supreme aura could be clearly seen everywhere in the Douluo continent. On the sea god's island, Pasizi's expression was solemn, and her blue eyes flickered. Others didn't know, but she knew that this was the aura of a divine king. 5 more divine kings had appeared. On the small Douluo continent, 7 divine kings actually appeared at the same time. Needless to say, something unimaginable must have happened. Could it be that this is what that guy said? Will he be involved in this? Thinking of what Lu Yuan had said before, Pasizi's heart surged with worry. Although she was very confident in Lu Yuan's strength, these were 7 divine kings, and Lu Yuan's participation was very dangerous. No wonder he told me to stay on the sea god's island and forbade me from leaving. If I participate in this, I'll definitely die. Pasizi bit her red lips, and for the first time, she felt from the bottom of her heart that Lu Yuan's arrangements were reasonable. Lu Yuan really did care about her. He was worried that if she were to be involved in this, she would die without leaving even ashes behind. After thinking this through, Pasizi's resentment toward Lu Yuan completely disappeared. What was left was a heart full of love. If you return safely, I'll marry you. If you don't return, I'll accompany you in the afterlife. Don't even think about getting rid of me in this lifetime. Pasizi's beautiful eyes blinked slightly, and she made up her mind. No matter what the outcome was, she was going to be with Lu Yuan, and nothing could stop her. In the Martial Soul Palace, Chihiro Snow's expression changed when she saw the 5 huge pillars of light. Not good. A divine king from the god realm has descended. Chihiro Snow was startled, and a trace of panic appeared in her golden eyes. She knew Gu Yuna's identity. The god realm had descended to the lower realm this time to kill Gu Yuna. No, I have to save her. Chihiro Snow clenched her fists and said with determination, "You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.